Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. You're welcome to the Hang Up here on the line. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Thanks for joining me. What's my Hang Up this week? Well, it's a mix of stuff. But the big one's probably going to be religion in schools. There's a lot going on in politics. Just as a reminder, after we're done taking live calls, we'll then go on to Super Chats. All Super Chats over $10 will be read tonight. We'll be here until that's done. If you want to keep us here for, 73 years, you can just keep donating like that. But when it comes to callers, the number will be down below. There's also a link in the description where you can call in. Theist callers are always going to get priority on any show that I'm on, but it doesn't have to be the focus of this particular show. We do that a lot on Sundays. So if you'd like to call in and defend your God belief, cool. If you'd like to call in and defend, as long as it's not like some esoteric bong rip, ooh, I think God is everywhere and does everything. Yeah, whatever. It needs to be something that matters to people. If you think that Lux and I have missed something and need some information, or you have a better way of explaining something, cool. They're calling in about political things or trans issues or anything like that. We'll be taking calls and questions and doing our best today. There's so much going on. I've been genuinely overwhelmed. I was toiling. You can ask Arden. It was probably 25 minutes to showtime, and I was sitting here going, there's like 93 things I can talk about, and I don't think I'm up to speed enough on all of them, given everything that's been going on. Trump's big, beautiful bill, after some manipulation in the Senate, got approved in a ridiculous tiebreaker vote, thanks to Alaskan Senator Lisa Murkowski, who a lot of people figured would be opposed to it. I'm not going to go through all the details of the big bullshit bill, but what's funny is she knew it was a bad bill. She does not like this bill. She, it seems, caved because there were some special allowances given to Alaskans in this, or something that was really going to benefit her constituents, so that she could justify her vote. And there are people who are saying that it's like Murkowski and Collins just sit there and figure, okay, I'll vote for this one and take the hit. You vote for the next one and take the hit. And then we can both look like we're objecting to the right when we're not at all. But what Lisa Murkowski said after it was over is that because this bill has changed, it has to go back to the House. And the House would then have to approve the changes. And they can't change anything else. Otherwise, the cycle goes over and goes back to the Senate. This could take a little while. And they're trying to get this thing to Trump by Friday. But what Senator Murkowski said was she hopes that the House doesn't approve this. So just for clarity, a sitting United States senator that could have voted against the bill voted for the bill in order to force the tie that allowed the tie-breaking vote. Voted for a bill that they hope does not pass the House upon revision. This senator, this sitting senator in Alaska, knew the bill was bad, does not want it to happen, but in order to get her freaking handouts, decided to vote for it, and then publicly say, let me paraphrase, I don't have the integrity to do what's right. I sure hope the people in the House do. Impeach her. Alaskans, get together. All of you who are getting ready to lose your Medicaid, health care, whatever other benefits are going to get washed, don't look at the fact that she got you some gravy train deal with, the pork. Impeach her. She is repeatedly, consistently, cowardly, duplicitous. She's not on the right. She's not on the left. She's just 93% on the right and likes to pretend that she's not. Anybody who is there to represent the people needs to not be a coward passing and shirking their duties off to somebody else, especially if you're a senator hoping that the House fixes what you were too afraid to fix, what you were strong-armed into. You are too weak to be a senator. I'd have more respect for you if you'd have just said, nope, I like the bill, I'm voting for it. Nobody should have any respect for Murkowski. And by the way, nobody should have respect for Susan Collins either. But today was her day to, not be as awful and instead to vote no. There's other things going on as well. There's an interesting lawsuit that's been started by 16 multi-faith and non-religious families in Texas to block State Bill 10, which is a law requiring that the Protestant version of the Ten Commandments be posted in public school classrooms. Precedent is out the window. The history of church-state separation is way gone now. The Supreme Court does what it wants. The administration ignores the courts when convenient. And Texas and other states are taking the lead in saying, okay, gloves are off. Let's do all of the Christian nationalist things that we wanted to do, that we've been prevented from doing by courts. And so what they're engaged in here is attempting to make it so that the Ten Commandments were displayed in every public classroom. They want it to return to that, despite the fact that we had rulings about the constitutionality of this. So 16 families have gotten together to sue. One of the quotes from one of the individuals, he's a rabbi, or they are a rabbi, and a public school parent. And they said, I'm deeply concerned that SB 10 will impose another faith's scripture on students for nearly every hour of the school day. While our Jewish faith treats the Ten Commandments as sacred, the version mandated underneath this law does not match the text followed by our family, and the school displays will conflict with the religious beliefs and values we seek to instill in our child. That's the quote that got picked up in the headlines. That's the one that's actually probably going to have the most impact. And the godless heathen families that are like, you're not supposed to be doing that. You're not going to get to preach at my kids. They're not going to have remotely equal standing. And that's an embarrassing position to be in. That is the sad state of the United States of America, where we're okay sticking religion in schools. We don't care what the non-religious people say. We don't care what the minority religious people say. But if there's somebody that we're kind of cozy with, like, Christians, or like the extension off of Judaism, and so we invented this fictional phrase of Judeo-Christian so that we can unite to come together. Oh, the rabbi's objecting because this is a particular Protestant version of the Ten Commandments we're putting up. So it's not even just a general Ten Commandments, because there isn't one. It's not the Catholic version. It's not Jewish versions. It's a Protestant version. Some people have no idea there are versions and subtleties and changes in different aspects of the Ten Commandments. That rabbi's quote may be one of the strongest things, and the other people who share those beliefs coming in to say, hey, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Sikh, I'm a godless heathen. We don't like you imposing a particular religion's holy text onto schools and public. We've fought this battle before. The cases and the precedent should be there, but they don't care. Religious freedom is what allows all of us to believe or not, to act in accordance with our beliefs or not, as our conscience dictates. It means that I don't get to go into public schools and say, there is no God. Any of you who believe in God are in violation of reason and principles and sound evidence. Doesn't matter how true it is. We have freedom of religion, protected and enshrined in the First Amendment to the Constitution. That means if you're religious, you get to teach your kid your religion, but you don't get to shove it down my kids' throats. You don't get to put it in public school classrooms, because that's the shared space. You can send your kids to private school where they can teach religion all they want. One of my favorite memes I've seen lately is that you want to post the Ten Commandments in classrooms. If it hasn't done any good in churches, what makes you think it's going to do any good in classrooms? as we have preacher after preacher after preacher after congressperson after right winger after right winger after right winger being arrested lately for child pornography and assaulting children and sexual assault just in general. Oh, Diddy's getting all the headlines for his wild parties and trafficking. I think he was not convicted on the trafficking, but was convicted on transporting people for prostitution, and was denied bail and is awaiting sentencing. So, you can be rich and still be punished as long as you're black. And don't get me wrong, he's disgusting. And I suspect from what I saw from the trial that he got off light and will get off light. But when it comes to what we're going to do in our shared spaces, you don't get to impose on me and I don't get to impose on you. We teach the truth, we give them the skills they need, and we don't get to prop up our preferred religion, and you don't get to prop up yours. If you're someone who supports this law, if you're someone who thinks we should have 10 commandments displayed in schools, call. Explain why. Do you support the displays of other religions, of other versions of the 10 commandments, of religious messages from religions you don't subscribe to? Maybe you're one of those unusual atheists who really like the pageantry of it all, or like the guy who commented, who I think is a liar, on my YouTube channel the other day, saying, "Hey, I'm an atheist, but I think we've lost a lot by no longer following the foundations of Christian values." Cool. If you think we should be posting the 10 commandments in public schools, call in and explain why. We'd love to hear it. If you think you have evidence or information about religions that we've missed, call in. We'd love to hear it. Joining me tonight, someone who's never been on the Hang Up, who's never done a show with me, just the two of us as far as I can recall, but is frequently on the Transatlantic Call-In Show, the program that will air tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please welcome Luxander.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good so far. I'm experiencing my first summer in the Pacific Northwest, and while it is unfortunate to not have central air conditioning, it's definitely at least gets cool at night. And so I'm appreciating this new culture of opening the windows at night and then running a super loud window unit during the day. So that's how I'm doing.
Yeah, it's no, in Texas, you move from one air-conditioned hovel to another for about 4 months, and then in Austin, it gets back to nice. So I don't know, were you a public school kid or a private school kid or a homeschool kid?
Yeah, I was a public school kid. Technically, I graduated a semester early because my freshman year, I took like some higher level classes. So technically it's like, I don't have to do the full senior year. But yeah, public schools, this feels so weird to me, this whole like culture of trying to get the Bible back in the schools, because I was active in atheist organization back then. Like I was reading those blogs and like attending cons and things like that. And it's so strange to me that we're going back where I'm remembering all these FFRF lawsuits and things, and we were making progress. I guess it's just like everything else that we're dealing with. Like things seemed so much better 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Gay marriage was, making progress, and people didn't really care that I was trans, even though I was a trans teenager. Like it just wasn't a problem in the way that it is now. So yeah, it's very weird, and we're seeing it in all kinds of different places. Wasn't it Oklahoma where they're like, no, literally, we're going to start teaching the Bible, actually? Like, oh yeah, so the rule of law is just gone, and like you said, precedent is out the window. Like some of the original founding principles of this country. And I'm not like the biggest fan of a lot of things that we do, but that was like a good call. Like right off the bat, it was a good call to be like, let's not impose religion on people. But yeah, it's crazy, this new evangelical movement putting us in that place where they're so terrified of Sharia law, blah, 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 whatever. But then they're just going to impose their belief systems, which are also pretty brutal, like pro-child marriage and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's just like hypocrisy at the highest level, and we're having a great time.
I'm with you. It's a little weird for me right now, because everything I thought I understood about the world changed in 2016 and has been on a downward decline, and things are topsy-turvy. For example, 20 years ago, back when I'd only been doing this for, I don't know, a handful of years, I had really good understandings of the First Amendment case law related to Ten Commandments monism. The very first episode of the Atheist Experience that I ever did, it was a week where Jeff D didn't show up, but I had written an article about the Ten Commandments monuments that stand right outside the Capitol here in Texas. And I had written an article about that. And when Jeff missed it, Ashley said, "Hey, you want to go on?" And I was like, "Sure, I'll go on, and I'll do this thing here, and then we can take calls." And well, the rest is history. But I had ready access to good information, to the court cases, and then I just set them all aside because we fought this battle half a dozen times in different states, and we upheld precedent. And it was like, okay, I don't agree with their claim that the Ten Commandments monument at the Capitol is like ceremonial deism. I think that's a lie, but we've gone as far down this road as we can. We're not going to get "In God We Trust" off our money. So let's move on to the bigger issues. And you're right. It's now trans rights are getting worse. Marriage equality is in danger. All this is Project 2025 Christian nationalist stuff. And as soon as the Supreme Court came out and signaled that they were going to grant, a lot of latitude and toss out precedent, and allow things to be challenged that we never suspected, and overturned Roe, which embarrassingly, I remember telling Beth, my ex-wife, that'll never happen. I had to call and apologize. I was clearly wrong. I overestimated what I thought was the rule of law of the Supreme Courts, and we're throwing it all out. And it feels very weird. And now I don't have...
super strange.
I couldn't do... once upon a time, I could have done a debate on church-state separation issues, with Ten Commandments in the classroom at the drop of a hat. And today, I need to go study up again, because we're going to start having those fucking debates again.
Yeah, there's like a whole new era of court cases for us to now refer to. And yeah, I mean, this is the problem with our like civil rights protections in this country it's just a house of cards stacked up with a bunch of court cases. This is the problem with the, gerrymandering and the inability to move legislation through. We should have had legislation for Roe v. Wade. Like, we should have had an enshrined law that can't just be willy-nilly overturned by, politically motivated appointees to these Supreme Court positions and even appeals court positions. But yeah, it just kind of feels to me like a super uphill battle in this particular moment. And I mean, you were talking about being overwhelmed. There's a reason why I'm doing movie review content right now and kind of checking out, because I can't deal with this all the time. And, the situation in Gaza, I think, was kind of maybe the final nail in the coffin for me feeling like I, as an individual, can do very much about anything in the world. And so I'm just trying to focus on things that I can do, which is like get to know people in my community, support and help people that I know personally, try to secure as much of a future as we can against climate change, because all this other shit is going to stop mattering when that problem becomes a bit more of a problem than it is now. And it is going to become more of a problem than it is now. So it's like, it just feels to me like a matter of time before all of this kind of implodes.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, we're going to go ahead and get started, because we've got callers on hold, including theists and including somebody who wants to defend the Ten Commandments in schools. So
yes,
Max is calling from Illinois. Pronouns are he, him. Max, welcome. You say you defend the Ten Commandments in schools because it's a good thing. How you doing?
How you doing? Good. Appreciate it. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. So why is it a good thing? And do you think this is a good thing? Let me back this up for a second. Would you agree that this violates the First Amendment, whether you think it's a good thing or not?
No, I don't feel it violates the First Amendment. No, I don't. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
So you don't think it violates the First Amendment. I think you're wrong, but we'll set that aside. Why do you think it's a good thing to be publicly posting a Protestant version of the Ten Commandments in schools?
Well, I think it's good morally for the children. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being taught not to kill, not to steal, not to commit adultery. So from a
What are the other
moral
ones?
standpoint, I think
What are the other ones?
I think that in the context of what you're saying as far as freedom of religion.
No. I'm saying, what are the other commandments? Because I agree. I have no problem at all with teaching people that they shouldn't kill, that they shouldn't steal. I have a problem with teaching them that they will have no other gods above this one, that they shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, that they remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Do you remember any of the other commandments? Since you're okay with them, I gave you the first three. What are the next ones?
You shouldn't commit adultery, you shouldn't steal, shouldn't bear false witness, honor your mother and father, keep the Sabbath holy, shouldn't kill, shouldn't have any other gods, shouldn't murder, don't have sex with your wife. I mean, somebody else's wife.
No,
don't have sex with your
yeah,
wife.
with somebody. So yes,
I was going to say,
I correct you. I'm sorry. I think something about idols or something.
You're saying,
something.
something about you. So you know, but you're saying the same ones over and over. You say, don't kill, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't sleep with your neighbor's wife. Those things are essentially the same. Why do you think it's okay and a good thing to post a 10 Commandments to public school kids who may be members of other religions or not adhere to the 10 Commandments?
Right. So in context, I believe that from what I understand, this is a Christian country. All of the
it's not. No, it's not. No, I'm sorry, but you're wrong from the outset, Max. This is the first country. This is the first country. I'm sorry, Max. I'm talking. I'm sorry, Max, but I'm talking. This is not a Christian nation. I am cutting you off. That's what I do on my show when you say something that's wrong. So this is, in fact, not a Christian nation. We have separation of church and state. We have freedom of religion here. We are the law has been set such that no religion can be prioritized or privileged over another religion or over irreligion. That's just the way the law is. But what I asked you is, why do you think it's good to post a particular Protestant version of the Ten Commandments in a public school classroom where there are kids who are Muslims and Jews and Hindus and atheists who are not aren't a part of the religion that you're posting? Would you be okay with me posting an atheist 10 Commandments in public schools, dictating to all the kids that there is no God, that it's okay to have sex outside of marriage, that queer is okay? Are you okay if I did that?
Okay, so like I said, in the context.
Okay, Max, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to mute you, Max. I'm in Zen mode, and I'm going to remain in Zen mode for probably forever. There's nothing you can do that's going to get my goat. When you say in context, I'm sorry, but there is no context that matters here. I'm asking you why you think this is good. You are fundamentally wrong about whether or not this is a Christian nation. But the question I just asked you, which I would like for you to answer, is would you be okay with tenets of other religions and other doctrines to hang side by side with the 10 Commandments in public schools?
Would I have a problem with that? No, I would not have a problem with that.
Okay. So if we're going to put the tenets of 53 religions, mandate that they all be hung on the public school wall next to each other with equivalent status, you're okay with that?
A little exaggerated, but yeah, I'm okay with it.
Cool. Lux, you got questions for Max?
I'm just curious if there is, to you, Max, no other way for us to teach the principles that you shouldn't kill people. Like, is there
And
some reason why we need like a religious icon in a school in order to teach that, when like I think we start in kindergarten with some very simple things like, I mean, I don't think a lot of kindergartners even know what death is, so it would be problematic to me to put something that says thou shalt not kill or like thou shalt not have sex with your neighbor's wife in a room with a bunch of 5-year-olds. But yeah, I'm just wondering, like, why is it that you think that we're not capable of instilling those values in children without violating the rights of non-Christian students?
I never said that. I never said that. What you
Well,
said.
so what we're talking
I
about,
never
Max, is
said.
we're talking about a law where it is mandated to put the 10 Commandments in every classroom, as far as I understand it. Does that sound right, Matt?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So every single
Right.
classroom required by the government, because the government owns the public schools, and
Right.
children are required to attend school according to the law, with some exceptions for like homeschool kids. So why is it that you agree with this law that it should be mandatory, i.e., it should be required to put the 10 Commandments specifically, and these Protestant 10 Commandments specifically, in order to instill those values in children?
Okay. So if you research all of the state constitutions are dedicated to God, the
Max,
God of Christianity.
Max, that's
You know what?
Max.
I'm gonna go because if you're gonna keep cutting me off every time I make a
Well,
point, I think
I
you
would
should
like you to
just
answer
No,
my
no, no.
question, Max. We're
I
getting a
am
little bit
answering it,
frustrated
but
with
if
you
you're gonna
because
keep
you are
cutting
not
me off,
I'm
answering the
sorry.
questions.
go ahead. I don't
Max,
think my
I'm
opinion
sorry.
is really being heard.
Max, I'm
No,
sorry
you're
that
not.
you're a cow. I'm going to mute you. I'm sorry that you're a coward who has to run away, but you don't get to make claims that are false. When you say, if you look at all the state constitutions, they all pay homage to the Christian God, that is simply false. And the constitutionality of those things has already been challenged and is established law. This is not a Christian nation. And your point about, oh, all the states pay homage to the Christian God. No, they don't. You are flatly wrong about all of the state constitutions. That this is the case. But Lux asked a question. I asked a question. You don't seem to know what you're talking about. And you seem to think that because your view is that this is a Christian nation, that somehow it makes it okay to do this. The problem is, when I asked you if you would be okay with other religious messages on the wall alongside of it, you said yes. And that's a great idea of yours, Max, because that would be like religious equality. We'd get to put up the Protestant 10 Commandments. We'd get to put up the Catholic version. We'd get to put up one of the other versions. And then we would get to put up a list of edicts from Hinduism, a list of from atheism. We would have to have, the Satanic Temple come up with their list. And then you would have a list where it would be, I'm the Lord thy God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me on one sheet. And the sheet right next to it would say, thou shalt not worship any gods or any beings outside of the material world without sufficient evidence. And then there'd be another one and another one. And so instead of being there to teach anything, which I'm sorry, but you don't get to teach people that they must worship your God in public schools, you would then be sending conflicting messages. Oh, Max has been on hold this entire time. Max, I thought you were running away. Why is it that you stayed?
I'm just listening to your point. I mean, I don't have a problem listening to somebody's point, even if I disagree with it. I'm not going to cut. I don't have the ability, obviously, to cut you off, but you obviously have the ability to cut me off. So I don't have a problem actually just listening to somebody that I disagree with.
Yeah, I don't either. What I have a problem with is you spreading misinformation that's easily corrected on my show. If you would stop saying things that were false, like all the state constitutions pay homage to the Christian God, because you have no understanding of the constitutional law there, and you are misrepresenting things, I'm going to correct it, and then you can move on. So Lux would maybe like to ask their question to you again.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I find a little bit frustrating, Max, if I'm being completely honest with you, is sometimes I will make a very specific and direct point or ask a specific and direct question, and then the person I'm speaking to says something completely unrelated to what I just said. So that's why I interrupt, just to be clear. So I will interrupt you if you do it again. So my question to you is, why do you think it's okay for this to be mandated in classrooms with 5-year-olds? when there are secular ways of teaching this information. You know, like when we are in kindergarten, we start with like, don't hit people. So like,
Right.
why is it that you think we can't teach those values of like, be kind to other people without the 10 commandments? You know, if your position is we should have the 10 commandments.
I never said those lessons couldn't be taught without the 10 commandments. I don't know why you keep saying it. I never said that. Those
Then
lessons
why do you
couldn't be
think
I'm
we
taught.
asking
need?
you to clarify. I'm asking you to clarify your position, because what you're saying is you think it's a good idea to put the 10 commandments in a classroom. The reason you gave, Max, is because you think that those are good moral values to teach to children. But I'm asking you,
Right.
since that is in violation of precedent based on the first, based on the First Amendment of the Constitution, we have established that doing this is a violation of the rights of non-Christian children. Why is it that you support violating the rights of non-Christian children if you do actually agree with me that there are non-religious ways of teaching and instilling these values?
Right. So last time I checked, the governors, the president, they all take an oath on a Bible. When you go to court,
No, sir.
you put your
No,
hand on
sir.
it.
Max.
You don't actually have to do that.
Max.
And
I'm
they
sorry.
do, which
Max.
makes it even crazier. The fact that
Okay, Max, I'm going to mute you. Please listen. There is no requirement that anyone swear on a Bible for public office. As a matter of fact, that is a direct violation of the Constitution to require it. The U.S. Constitution doesn't mention God at all. And the only mention of religious tests is that the U.S. Constitution says there shall be no religious test for any public office or trust. When you are going in for jury duty, you can choose to swear on a Bible or something else. If you're being sworn into public office, you can swear in on a Bible, and that's performative nonsense that people engage in, and they're permitted to, but there is no requirement. You can swear in on the Constitution, you can swear in on a feather or nothing at all, just giving your oath. I'm only interrupting because, once again, you are making claims that are demonstrably obviously false. And if those claims are the foundation for why you think this is okay, it's better to correct it now. So no one is required to swear in on a Bible. Clear?
And it still does not answer my question.
I never said, well, because every time I try to answer the question, I get cut off. So
okay, I'm going to mute you again, Max. When you say that you never said they were required to swear in on a Bible, okay, cool. You brought it up that they all swear in on a Bible, which isn't true, and there's no requirement that they do. But it's also irrelevant that they swear in on a Bible. That's a personal choice.
I don't know. Hold on.
See? That's a personal choice on their part. They can swear on a Bible, they can swear on something else. If you're going to make a case, please make points that are relevant to the case. If you're going to say, here's why I'm okay with violating the rights of Christian students, it doesn't matter how many governors or how many senators or how many representatives swore in on a Bible. All of that is irrelevant to what your justification is for violating the rights of non-Christian students. So what is your justification for violating the rights of non-Christian students?
how about you tell me what my justification is, seeing how my own personal opinion is being like, if you're going to dictate to me what I can and can't say, then why don't you tell me what I'm telling you, this
Can you
is my
explain?
personal opinion.
I have a question. I want to ask you a clarifying question, Max. Can you explain to me the connection between putting the 10 commandments in a school when we could be teaching that same value through a non-religious way? We could be teaching those values in a different way. Can you explain to me how the governor the governor putting his hand on a Bible is relevant to my question? Because you feel like it's relevant, and I just don't see the connection.
Okay, we're not playing this game, Max. Max, my apologies, Lux. We're not going to play this game with you, Max. No, you're done speaking now. I'm going to mute you again. The thing that you don't seem to understand is you're calling in. This isn't a call-in show where you just say, hey, this is my opinion, and I'm not going to bother defending it. It is a chance for you to defend your position in order to try to change people's minds. But so far, no matter what we ask you, you either claim that we didn't let you finish, which is true in many cases, because what you were saying was incorrect or irrelevant. See, Lux just asked what it was about your position, why the governor's swearing in on a Bible was relevant to your case. The point I was trying to make is that that's irrelevant. We need to get actual. What you're doing at this point, Max, is fundamentally no different from saying, I think putting the Bible in public schools is a good thing. La, 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 poopy pants, blah, 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 fergle, burgle, manurgle, burgle. Because nothing you've said actually gives a justification for why you think it's a good thing. You're just restating your opinion and then talking about how it's a Christian nation when it's not, how they swear in on the Bible when it's irrelevant. So I'm going to give you one absolute last chance here, Max. How is it relevant that people swear in on the Bible to your position that you should be allowed to violate the rights of non-Christian students?
Can you repeat the last part? Because when you cut me in the beat, there was a beat, so I could only hear about half of what you said then.
Yes. Your statement that they swear in on the Bible, how is that relevant to your position that it's okay to violate the rights of non-Christian students?
Because it goes back to my original point that I was making, which is it's all connected. The original point that I was making, which you obviously disagree with, and that's fine. When I was saying that this is a Christian country, you obviously
okay, Max. It's not a Christian country. It's not a matter of disagree. It is a fucking fact. You need to go study the law. But what we asked you was, how is it relevant that they swear on a Bible? Even if this were a Christian nation, which you are fucking wrong about, it isn't relevant that they swear in on a Bible as a justification for violating the rights of non-Christians. So let me ask you this question. I'm going to unmute you real quick. Do you agree that in the United States of America, people are free to practice or not practice whatever religion they wish to practice or not practice?
You said, can you repeat that? I want to be clear on what you said. In the United States, do I believe that people are free to practice whatever religion they want? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yes, I do believe that.
Cool. If people are free to practice whatever religion they want, shouldn't the government remain neutral and not be declaring you must do this religion and instead of this one?
In
That was
theory,
a
yes.
question. Okay. So I don't know why you had to put an in theory there. The practical reality is that if all of us are going to be free to practice whatever religions we choose or not, then you can't have the government dictating this is our religion or this will be your religion. You can't have a government saying this is a Christian nation and you will be Christian. And you can't have a government saying we're going to post Protestant Christian commandments in public schools mandatorily, but not these others, because now you are stepping on people's rights to practice their religion unhindered and unimpeded by the government.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What is your opinion on? Right. Okay. So, if a president doesn't have to take an oath on the Bible, why do they still make a conscious choice to do so?
Because the majority of people in the country are Christian and feel
there
that.
You go. Thank you. That's my point. Thank you.
Okay, Max, I'm going to mute you because you're so monumentally pleased with yourself that you got me to admit something that I have admitted thousands of times. The majority of people in this, let me do this real quick, and then I'm going to let Luck to get back in. Are you saying that this is a Christian nation because the majority of people are Christian?
No, that's just no. That was just a side point. That helps my point, but that's not the main reason.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't help your point. I don't know why you got so excited when I acknowledged that the majority of people in the United States are Christians. How is it relevant to your point that the majority of people in the United States are Christians?
Well, going back to the question, in context of the question that you asked me as far as should the government remain neutral? And I said, in theory, yes, but in practice, you still have situations where you have presidents taking oaths on Bibles. You still have governors taking oaths on Bibles. The police takes an oath.
Max,
you still have
no, they
situations.
fucking Max. Okay,
That's a
I don't know.
personal
I don't know
choice.
how else to explain this to you because it's starting to feel like you are intentionally obtuse. Let me be very clear. The majority of people in the United States are some form of Christian. Majority of people in the United States have been indoctrinated to swear in on the Bible. Some of them do it because they sincerely want to. Some of them do it because it's tradition. Some of it do it for performance reasons because the people who are voting for them, who they're representing, they want them to feel, I'm one of you. The number of people, the percentage of people in the United States who are Christian doesn't make this a Christian nation, just like the number of white people in this nation doesn't make it a white nation, and the number of cis people in this nation don't make it a cis nation. When it is a cis nation, a trans nation, a Christian nation, that is defined by what the government declares. The government of the United States, in the Treaty of Tripoli, ratified unanimously by Congress, specifically states the government of the United States being in no way founded on Christianity. In addition to that, there are the First Amendment, which really wise people said, hey, you know what? We got Christians and Protestants. We've got Muslims and Mormons. We've got Mennonites and Amish. We have atheists and everybody else. We have to allow people to practice their religion, and that means we don't get to dictate what they can do. So while you sit there laughing because I acknowledge the fact, you will always get me to acknowledge facts. I really wish you would start acknowledging facts instead of continuing to spread misinformation about the Christian nation. I think Lux has a question for you. Okay.
That's fun.
I'm going to mute you
too.
again because you're just sitting there laughing. So now I no longer think that you're sincere at all. Now I think that you're a troll or a prank caller because we caught you laughing offline. And I think this because you have made one flawed assertion after another. You don't seem to understand the basics of how to make an argument or what is relevant to an argument. So this is my last shot because I want Lux to be able to ask whatever question it has for you, and then I'll unmute you. And then as long as you're not laughing and you actually try to answer its question, then we can continue. And if not, I'll just drop it. So Lux, what was your preferred question?
I mean, I was just going to make a comment really, which is that like a person swears in based on like their own personal morals. Like the reason why people swear on a Bible is because we understand that to mean that it's like when a person says like, I swear on my mom, like we understand that to be like, they really are taking it seriously, right? So a governor or a president having a personal belief in Christianity, a personal belief in the Bible, and like we're to understand them swearing in on the Bible as them saying, literally, I swear to God, I'm going to do a good job at this. And it would be considered literally blasphemy for them to go against, like to go back on that promise that they made. That's like literally the entire principle. So non-religious people, when they swear in, might swear in on the Constitution because it's like, I swear on the principles of this document of the promise that we made to one another that I'm going to uphold this document, right? So it would not be blasphemy for that person to go back on their oath, but we would consider that a grave, quite serious thing if they were to go back on that promise. So like I just again don't think that is representative of this idea that like we live in a Christian nation. I don't think that you're like saying like, oh, the president's personal religious beliefs means that it's acceptable for us to force Muslim children to read a document every day that says you will have no other God before the Christian God. Like it's just, and like all the laws, like the judicial system that we have, like we've looked at this over and over again, and we know that this is a clear violation of the rights of non-Christian students. So I just don't see how you can justify it. And I think that you're pulling random examples because you can't actually justify doing this.
Okay. Am I muted still, or can you hear me?
No, you're unmuted now.
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. You want me to respond to what you said?
I would love that.
Okay. Well, if from what I've understood, from what you've been saying, that they're posting these in the classrooms, but I don't. From what I understand, they're not telling anybody that they have to follow. I don't think they're mandating that Muslim children or people that are outside the Christian religion. I don't think they're saying you have to believe in this God. I believe that they're explaining what the Ten Commandments are. They're explaining where it comes from, but nobody is forcing them to become Christian, or nobody's saying
Why can't they go to church? Why can't their parents take them to church? Like, why is it in a government building, a place where children are required to be? Like, this is the thing, Max. Children are required to be in this building every day, or otherwise police will get involved and call it truancy and child neglect. Like, literally, there are laws that say you have to go to school. So if you're in a place where you are required to be every day, and there's a message that's right above you on the wall every day that says, basically, you have to believe in God. Like, it says the 10 Commandments, you shall have no other God before me, don't have sex with other people's wives. Like I don't really see how you can justify that and say, like, oh, whatever, like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it is a big deal for the government to take on an official position like that.
So it is a law. It is a law, Max. It is a law that they're trying to pass. Max, stop interrupting me. It's never going to work for you. Just sit there quietly and listen, and you'll learn something. Do you want to learn something or not?
I'm listening. I don't have a problem listening to you, bro.
Evidently you do. So, evidently you do, because you just interrupted me to tell me again. So I'd rather not have to mute you.
I couldn't hear you.
But I will. All right. I'll just fucking mute you. I don't need you to talk at all. Maybe ever. Here's the thing. It's not a law saying you have to obey the 10 Commandments. It's a law that requires them to be posted in public school classrooms, which means the United States government, which should be neutral on this, is now saying, or actually in this case, it's the Texas state government, which should be neutral on this, is now saying you have to post this version of this list of instructions from this particular religion in every public school classroom. They do not have to post any others, and it would be absurd to try to post every version of every list of tenets. There's a reason why we don't have mandatory prayer in school. There's a reason why we don't post the 10 Commandments in public schools, because if you're a little Jewish kid or a Muslim kid or a Hindu kid, and you walk into the classroom every single day, and what you see is the Protestant 10 Commandments, what that does is it makes you realize this is not your place. You are not on equal footing here. You do not matter as much as the Protestant kids do. It's their place. You're just a second-class citizen. It's kind of like saying, hey, it's okay to put people at the back of the bus, to have a whites-only diner, or to have people sit in a special area because they look different, because they sound different, they have a weird accent, their skin color is a little different, they don't fit with this. And you don't have to say, oh, you have to do this. It's just the presence there. It is not relevant to learning anything in a public school. It is not relevant to learning reading or writing or arithmetic. It's not relevant to learning civics, other than saying this shouldn't be posted here. It serves only to marginalize and divide people into groups of, here's the group that the government endorses and you're not in it. So not only are you advocating forcing kids to exist in an environment that is not conducive to learning, that can stress them on whether or not they belong, that turns minorities into further ostracized minorities. But you're saying it's okay for reasons that aren't even true, or you're saying, they're not saying you have to follow the 10 Commandments. Okay. if you're not saying you have to follow it, and they can learn it at church, and they can learn it at home, why post it? What is the reason to post, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," in a public school classroom when that doesn't apply to all of the students and nobody's saying you need to actually obey it? What then is the benefit of posting it in public schools?
Can you repeat that last part again? It was a beat when you let me
What
in. You
is
said,
what
the
is
point?
what is the benefit of posting it in public schools?
The benefit is that morally, like we discussed this, that, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. I think morally there's nothing wrong with those. I've already said this.
Max?
I also wanted to point out when you were talking about.
Max, no, you're not going to also point out, because you didn't answer my question. You just repeated something that we already agreed, which is that there's nothing wrong with saying "thou shalt not kill." There is something wrong with saying "thou shalt have no other gods before me." There is something wrong with saying that, because not everybody believes that, and it's not a function of civic duty or anything else. It violates religious freedom. You keep cherry picking "thou shalt not kill" because Lux and I are okay with that. And actually, I think "thou shalt not kill" is an incredibly weak commandment. There's a reason why United States law has so many different categories of what happens when you kill another person. First-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, manslaughter, negligent homicide. We recognize something that those ancient Hebrews did not recognize, which is that "thou shalt not kill" is not really an instructive thing at all, especially when it comes from a book that specifically allows you to kill people, and where God specifically commands people to kill people. So what we asked wasn't, "Hey, can you point out to one where there's nothing wrong with it?" What we asked is, if they are not being posted there specifically to encourage or demand that people follow them, what could possibly be the benefit? You want to say it's a moral benefit. But first of all, you and I don't agree on the moral aspect of all of these. We agree on some of them. But if they're not being enforced, there can be no moral impact. You are not in any way, if you're just saying, "Hey, let's just put, what we should put up right next to 10 Commandments? The left lane is for passing only." That's what we should put in there.
It would be more
Use your
useful.
fucking blinker. So once
I think
again,
the kids have a choice.
once again, my question is this: what benefit is there to post a list of things if they're not being enforced or encouraged?
You tell me. What is the government
It's okay
saying?
for
No,
you.
What is
It's
the
okay
Max.
for you to just say you don't know, Max. I want to say, this is a perfect opportunity for you to say you don't know what the benefit is. I
That's what you want me
love
to
this
say?
moment that we're
I
having
don't
here.
know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know.
So
I don't know.
I
Go ahead.
love that
That's
for
what
you.
want.
Goodbye.
Because this means, and
I
I'm going
don't-
to keep talking even though you drop him. This means that it's okay for you to change your mind. It's okay for you to go, "Hey, I don't actually know why I think it's good to put that in schools," and to go, "Oh, maybe I should rethink that for a minute and acknowledge that, oh, here's a bunch of bad reasons and I can't think of any good reasons." So
Yeah.
it's like we're just having this moment where you're having a little bit of resistance to the fact that you have to change your mind because you can't even justify your own beliefs to yourself. And it's okay for you to need to take some time and cook on that and think on it a little bit, and call back later, let your brain update when you have come to the realization that that you're wrong.
Yeah. Maybe you'll figure out that you only think it's okay for it to be there because A, you're an adherent of that particular religion, and B, you've been indoctrinated to be an adherent. We've given you tons of examples about all the various problems with this. And then when we ask you what your justification is, and you keep coming up with fallacies or false things, and you're stuck, you're like, "Well, you tell me what my reason." No, I don't think you have a reason. I don't think you could have a reason. I don't think any reasonable person who understands the nature of this could in any way support this. This is 100% religious bigotry and indoctrination. It is Project 2025 Christian nationalism that does not care about the Constitution, does not care or want there to be Muslim kids, Hindu kids, atheist kids. They want to foist their religion on each and everybody else.
Oh no.
Sorry.
That's the
And in
worst.
part, it's because they understand something that Max evidently doesn't. Max is okay with posting other things alongside the Ten Commandments because Max doesn't know what the hell's going on here. But from a Christian nationalist point of view, the obligation is to make the world Christian. If there is in fact a God, and that God is the Christian God, then religious freedom should not exist. If there is a God who is governing this world, the Christian God governs this world, then religious freedom should not be permitted because that is in violation of God. This is how the Christian nationalists think. And you are going, well, you know, it doesn't hurt to tell kids not to kill people. I agree. There's several of those commandments that, you know, I'm okay with. But most of them, so like, let's go through them in various versions. I'm the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. No, I'm not going to have any gods before you or after you or anybody else, but I don't get to tell anybody else what gods they get to put first, if any. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. No, fuck that. I'm going to enjoy art, secular art and religious art. Graven images are a good thing. Graven images are the reason that we are now distinct from the other animals. Our ability to engage in written communication and process and exchange ideas such that if a local a population of bonobos gets wiped out, whatever cultural memory and cultural traditions they've been passing along are extinct. The reason that we are different is because if humans go extinct, there will still be a record, and some of that record is encoded in such a way that some people will be able to figure out things, just like we can decipher dead languages and ancient languages. So that we need graven images. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Well, it's not my God. If I had a God, I would take that God's name in vain too, because saying fuck God or God's useless or gods aren't real or no God's done anything or why does God keep sending the most inept people to defend him every time we do a show? People who can't tell the truth, people who can't reason their way out of a wet paper bag. All of these people, God must be punking them because God's a monumental piece of shit. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. I don't give a flying fuck about the Sabbath. I'm going to work on the days that I work. I'm not going to keep any day holy. If anything, I might keep every day holy, not making one day better than the rest of them. Honor thy father and mother. No, I will not honor my father and mother by way of edict and command. My parents, whether they gave birth to me or not, are either decent people deserving of my respect and admiration, or they are not. And if your parents were abusive and shitty, if your parents are voting to take away your rights, fuck them in the fucking face figuratively. They do not deserve anybody's respect or admiration, and definitely not those of their children whose rights they're going to be voting against. Thou shalt not kill. I went through this earlier. I'm opposed to murder. Killing, on the other hand, happens a lot. And sometimes it's justified. Maybe, depending on your ethics. The Bible definitely justifies some. There are people like James who wear a gauze mask so they don't even accidentally inhale an insect because they take not killing things to the extreme. I find that a little ridiculous, but thou shalt not commit adultery. I am in favor of that. Only because if you've made a commitment to someone that here are the boundaries of our relationship, I'm not going to see other people and you're not going to see other people, you should honor your word and do what you say you did. However, what the Bible views as adultery would exclude thruples and polyamory. It would exclude premarital sex and extramarital sex, even with the consent of the other parties. And those things should all be permissible because we're grown fucking adults. And we don't need your ancient book to tell us that we're doing it wrong when it seems that your book is doing it wrong. Do not steal. Yep. I'm just down with that. Do not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Now, if this is just about when you're testifying, yes, I would agree. But I do think that there are occasions when it is okay and morally superior to lie, like when they come knocking on the door to say, hey, do you have any illegal immigrants here? You should lie your ass off, because right now they are Proud Boys in masks dispensing what isn't justice in the wrong way. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, their neighbor's wife, their neighbor's slaves. Ooh, yeah, don't covet your neighbor's slaves. I'm good with that. We should not be advocating for slavery like the Bible does. And I don't think I need any moral advice or to pass on any moral advice that comes from the same book that says women are inferior and can't own property in the same way that men can. The same book that says it's okay to have slaves and beat them as long as they don't die within a couple of days. The same book that advocates this is a sin and that is a sin and all of these sins are punishable by death. The Bible is a morally inferior book. The fact that on a list of 10 things, Max was only able to repeatedly cite one or two that we could agree with is a demonstration of just how problematic all that is. Not the least of which is that we have a constitution that exists to protect people from that. So thanks for the call, Max. Oh, we got others.
It was fun.
Georgie's calling from Bulgaria, and Georgie pronunciation says, we are eternal beings. Hey, Georgie, you're on with Lux and Matt. How are you?
I'm good.
What do you mean by
Hello?
we're eternal beings, and how do you know?
Well, first of all we have access to in this world is awareness. We don't have so we as non-physical beings have created physical reality because physical reality provides us the opportunity to experience our infinite and eternal nature from a new point of view.
Okay, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly, and then I'm going to sidestep because I can't see Lux right now, but I'm betting it has questions. So you're saying that we are in fact eternal beings and that we created a physical reality so that we could experience ourselves from a more limited perspective than we did when we weren't physical, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I'd love to know how you know that and how we can know that, but Lux, what was your first question?
I mean, I would be okay with just pursuing a line of thinking that's like, how do you know that? That's like, listen, I want to be completely clear. If that's true, I want to be convinced of that. So give me your best case for like, what is it that, what is it that you have this special knowledge that like I have an eternalness that's going to, that existed like presumably before my mom got pregnant is going to persist beyond my death. Like, tell me about it.
Well, I don't have proof particularly, but there are people who channel angels and aliens. So,
Tell me about the aliens, Georgie.
yeah, a person meditates and then another being comes from them and speaks.
How do you know that that's another being and not just somebody pretending that it's another being?
Because they're doing it very well and they have a lot of energy.
I don't know what it means to do it very well, and I don't know how energy is relevant to this. I'm asking, how do you know it's real? And you seem to think that you can tell it's real because you can't be fooled.
Well, I'm not saying I can be fooled, but it's really compelling, you know.
I get that there are people who portray things like this, so-called psychic mediums and other stuff, but there's never been any demonstration, to my knowledge, that what they're doing is real. And so when you say that there's people who are channeling, I think that there are people who pretend to channel. I have no evidence that they're actually channeling. And I'm wondering what evidence you have that's different from mine, because if the only thing that's different is that you are convinced and I'm not, then we're just stuck. I need like evidence.
Yes, a person that channels an alien has presented two scientific experiments that we can do and then concur.
But there's been no scientific experiment that has confirmed that someone has channeled an alien. And I don't even know what that would look like. How would you design a scientific experiment to show that someone is actually channeling an alien?
He gives two scientific experiments, and one has to do that each moment is a parallel simultaneous reality, and it has to do with a copper bowl on a steel table, and we make different measurements, and after that the ball teleports. So
where is the documentation of this particular? Are you saying this has been done, or are you saying this is how you could do it?
In a session, he had people who are working on this experiment, and they ask him more questions.
I have a question, Georgie. So the idea that aliens exist. So I'm gonna set something up for you and kind of explain my point, and then lead into a question. So if aliens exist, there is a lot about the universe that is implied by that. Like there has to be a spaceship somewhere, or we have to be in communication with them. It necessarily means that some beings out there have developed faster than light travel, or at the very minimum, that they have the infrastructure to create extremely large and long-lasting spaceships that can be multi-generational travel. So those are a bunch of things that would have to be true if aliens existed and could contact us on Earth. On the other hand, we have a well-documented history of understanding what psychosis is. And so I'm just curious, when you're like, oh, this person is saying something about the fundamental nature of the universe, and it is in contradiction to basically everything we know to be physically true. They're like, oh, there's this whole non-physical thing happening. Trust me, it's for real, bro, even though you can't see it. Why is it that you think that it's more likely true that aliens and angels exist versus the likelihood that that person is just very mentally unwell?
Because he stays consistent in his ideas, and
well, people who are delusional are also sometimes pretty consistent. They're like, oh yeah, that's the Hat Man, you know, he's here again. So the consistency of the claims doesn't have any bearing for me on whether that is actually real. Like my approach to finding out whether things are real is completely built on a body of evidence. And even though there are things out there, it's like, I'm not going to say, oh, evidence that like I can see it, because we can't see black holes, but we can see how they impact all of the things around them. And so we have figured out like, oh, that's a black hole. And so we can look at spots in space and be like, okay, even though we can't measure the black hole itself, we can observe what it does to things around it, right? So at the very minimum, I need to see how that thing affects other things around it before I'm going to be like, yeah, for sure, that thing exists. And I think that, you just maybe are operating on a completely different level of willingness to believe what some asshole says to you. Like I'm just not convinced. And so I'm curious if you have anything more than just like somebody said something fucking insane and I believed them.
Well, my point is that they get together, people get together and ask questions, and mostly the people ask self-help questions.
But that's not evidence that there are aliens and they're real and they're contacting us. And like this person is a telepathic channel for these aliens. You know, like I'm really having a difficult time with like the fact that you believe this and like why. Because again, if it were true, I'd be so down. I just recently got into a science fiction kick. I've been reading Ursula K. Le Guin. Good stuff. Enjoy that a lot. I would be psyched if aliens were real. But like, what I'm saying here is that the level of evidence you would need to convince pretty much anybody that aliens are real is like a lot of evidence. And for you to believe in it on very little evidence, like, oh yeah, a guy said some stuff and some people asked him some questions. Like, okay, you're telling me that there wasn't even a brain scan involved in this situation? Like, did we take into account a family history of mental health or anything? Like, do we know if this person lives next to a radioactive nuclear facility? Like, I feel like there are a lot of different things that I could think up and that would be more plausible. Like, why is this person saying these things versus like, oh, well, it's aliens for sure.
I wonder if I were to sit here, Georgie, and I were to tell you that I'm channeling a 15,000-year-old spirit from another planet, what information should that spirit be able to give me that would convince you that I'm telling the truth?
That is a very hard question.
And yet you seem to have answered it for the ones that you're accepting the claims for. I get that it's a difficult question. I think it's a nearly impossible question to answer because I have no idea how you would prove that you're actually hearing from this spirit or that there's no demonstration that there is any spirit. You called in to say we're eternal beings who manufactured reality so that we can experience it. How could we ever prove to ourselves that we are in fact eternal beings that manufactured reality? What's the evidence for that? Set aside the alien thing. What is the evidence that I'm an eternal being that manufactured reality?
First, you exist. Second,
No, sir. No, sir, Georgie. I know I exist. The fact that I exist is not in any way relevant to whether or not I exist as an eternal being. So if you say, Matt, you're a genius, and I say, how would you prove it? And you say, well, first you have a brain. I know I have a fucking brain. Having a brain doesn't make me a genius, and existing doesn't make me eternal. I'm asking you for evidence that we're eternal beings.
the one true fact that we can concur is that all we have access to is awareness.
No, sir. So I understand that the one true fact that you're talking about is awareness. Really, this is best expressed in Descartes' cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. To whatever extent the reality I experience may be fictional, at least there must be a real me to be the perceiver, the one that is being deceived. That tells me nothing at all about whether or not I'm eternal. Try again. Okay.
Well, you see, by definition, existence has to exist, and that which does not exist doesn't.
Okay. I'm going to move on, Georgie, because by definition, existence exists and what doesn't exist is true. and absolutely completely fucking useless and tells you nothing at all about whether or not I exist as an eternal being or whether or not any being exists as an eternal being, because I am not existence. And this is evidenced by I came into existence somewhere around 1969, give or take. But prior to that, there's no evidence that I existed. And yet you're claiming I did exist. You don't get to just point to existence and say existence must exist. Therefore, Matt existed in 1923. It's simply not the case that nothing you've cited even comes close to demonstrating a trivial fact about existence, let alone an extraordinary claim like we're eternal. So I'm going to let you go, Georgie. Think about it some more, or call us back when you get something stronger.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. How cool would it be if we were eternal beings, Lux, that invented reality?
I mean, it would be very cool. I do like fantasize about immortality a little bit, you know? It's like there is something kind of appealing and romantic about, you know, just being alone in the universe in an indefinite period of time in the future and getting to see what wonderful and terrible things humanity does. Sadly, I am not convinced of that, unfortunately, which is, I mean, it's kind of sad, honestly, to live in a world where there's no magic, like a little bit, but it's the real world and I'd rather live there.
I think, by the way, I want to point something out because I saw something in chat. Lux's preferred pronouns are its. And occasionally I will slip up and use they because it's old habit, but I have tried to make sure that I use its. And if anybody there was somebody out there that was like, why is he referring to them as it? And I'm like, you know, I'm trying to make sure that I use people's preferred pronouns, but it's also, I realized we skipped right past that.
We
so there's
totally
people in
didn't
chat.
do it.
So
I'm the worst
people
trans.
are like, Matt's
I
just
never
being a dick.
Yeah, we don't do it on TACIS either, and I feel like maybe we should like either have it on the lower third or at least do a little pronoun introduction. You know, I'm a little bit more it/they, I guess, lately, just because like it's not practical to stick with it's in this day and age. I recently was like, oh, I'm about to start applying for a real job, and the idea that my references would use its pronouns caused a little bit of an existential panic in me, because it is it's like only safe to do online. People would be so upset otherwise.
It's a problematic thing. We were watching a show. I'm not going to say the show or anything because there are spoilers, but in the show they referred to an artificial intelligence that may or may not have been a sentient being, but was representing itself as female. And as an insult, they referred to the AI as it, like specifically, you know, you're not her, you're it type of thing. And as long as that exists as an insult, as long as there's still this idea out there, it makes it, even for those of us who are trying to use people's preferred, it makes it uncomfortable. And it's like, oh, there's a little hurdle. And so it's a little conscious effort. And I figured it'd be worth it to tell folks in chat, no, I wasn't just being an asshole.
No. It is a happy time to use people's preferred pronouns. Sometimes people are like, what if I feel like that's derogatory? Or if I feel like that's inaccurate because you're a human? And I'm like, baby, that's the same exact argument that people say, I'm not going to use that trans woman's she, her pronouns. Oh, I don't like it. Like, you know, let's just honor people's pronouns. It's fine.
It is effort worth making if it makes my friends and coworkers and everybody more comfortable. The problem is that you're going to get into a position, and not you, but I mean, just generally I'm speaking, where somebody's going to be comfortable and somebody else is not. And at that point, there probably needs to be conversations maybe between those individuals so that they come to an understanding of why one's comfortable with it, one's not. But this is a perfect opportunity to remind people that tomorrow, Thursday, the Transatlantic Call-In Show is live at 2 p.m. Central. And if you have questions about pronouns, you don't just have to watch Schoolhouse Rock, but you probably fucking should, because I'm tired of people calling in to say, "Oh, I don't do pronouns. That's new made up stuff." No, I had a friend named Rufus Xavier Sarsaparilla. Go look it up. It's wonderful. It's the start of it. But also, Lux will be on tomorrow. Who you on with? Do you know?
I think it's Ben. Me and Ben tomorrow on the Transatlantic Call-In Show.
Awesome. So if you're someone with questions about trans rights, trans issues, transitioning, non-binary folks, pronouns, if you've been accused of being a transphobe and you're proud of it, you can call in and they'll deal with that. If you've been accused of being a transphobe and you're terrified of that and you don't know what you did wrong or how to be a better ally to LGBTQ people, they'll have answers for that as well. Can't guarantee their answers are right, but I can guarantee that you'll be speaking to two actual, real live trans people and not just some fucking cis dude telling you what he thinks. Because it's
true.
always
People keep calling to ask you what you feel about pronouns and like Forrest. And I'm like, come on, guys, we're the experts over here.
I will say, I'm going to get right back to callers here in just a second. I will say that I'm not as convinced that being an eternal being is particularly desirable. I'd like to live just about as long as I feel like I want to live and then stop. But
you need the option. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that if you were an eternal being, the notion that you would create a physical reality in order to experience reality as a limited being, I don't know what the benefit of that would be, but also, why would I create it alongside of other, like, did we get a group of eternal beings where we all sitting around somewhere in the nowhere and say, hey, let's make a physical reality so we can experience that. And if we knew it and we knew how to do all that, wouldn't we already know what it was like? Wouldn't we essentially be godlike like that? And if the thing is, if what the caller is saying is that, no, we're all one being, and that one being, which is me, split itself up and, okay, cool. I mean, we're right back to what I call bong rip theology, which is,
literally.
Let me get high and think about really cool stuff. And it's neat. And it may inspire you to live your life differently. It may inspire you to create beautiful pieces of art or teach somebody something. But I give a shit about what's true. And I primarily care about the religions that occupy the minds of the bulk of people on planet, such that they are either actively legislating their religion on others, or, as Max did, complicit in allowing that to happen. That has to stop. All right. This person's been on hold for ages and ages. So Chris, calling from Georgia, pronouncing him, wants to ask me about the historicity of Jesus. Why do historians consider Jesus to be real? Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you, sir?
Not bad.
Yeah,
So-
I was basically... Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
It's time for you to tell us what the call is about.
Oh, my apologies. I thought Matt was about to say something, but yeah.
There's a little
I
bit
was
of a
just,
delay. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah, I was just calling to ask what the actual consensus is on Jesus as a historical figure. I get into debates online with Christians, and they'll always tell me, go look it up right now. Every website will tell you Jesus's existence, his crucifixion, and the empty tomb is all historically confirmed. And
That's not
I was
true.
just wondering if maybe like where I can go to get reliable information on this and what actually is historically verified.
Yeah, I'll give you my quick answer, and then interested to see what Lux has to say about any of it. There are people on the network, including like John Gleason, who are mythicists. I have friends who are mythicists. You can read mythicist literature, and some of it is incredibly good. Some of it is overreaching, in my estimation, because they're making claims that they can't prove. By asserting that somebody didn't exist, you've now made a claim, and I don't know how you demonstrate that they didn't exist. Historians generally acknowledge the consensus is that Jesus existed as a real person. The reason they say that is because the methods that historians use doesn't really matter whether or not somebody actually existed. If they're spoken of by other people who existed as if they existed, if the context surrounding this is a narrative of reality and not a fiction, then we just assume they existed, because, what difference does it make if Socrates existed or not? It doesn't make any difference. And until you want to say this person's existence is what permitted the salvation of everyone. So historians cannot confirm either the crucifixion or the empty tomb, because there are plenty of holes in the ground that don't have somebody in them. How could you possibly show this hole used to contain this body for a couple of days while it was recovering from dying on a cross for everybody's sins? That is patently absurd. So every time somebody's like, we found Jesus's tomb. How? What test could you possibly do to show that this is Jesus's tomb, or that there is any tomb that Jesus was in, or that you know anything at all about any of the facts of his life? So what I do is I make a list of all the things that the Bible claims about Jesus, and I mark them as one of two things: mundane, extraordinary. And all of the mundane things, well, let me do it this way. None of the extraordinary things have been or possibly could be confirmed. We can't confirm he turned water into wine or healed anybody or performed any miracles. All we can know is that people said he did. And just like the person who called in earlier was telling us about someone is channeling an ancient alien, that's a claim. And so all historians can do is say people believed that someone was channeling an ancient alien. The mundane things about Jesus are also generally unverifiable. We have no birth certificates. There weren't any. We don't have any records. There are no contemporary accounts from the time where he lived at all, including the Bible. The gospel accounts are decades, if not more, afterwards. And so there are zero contemporary accounts attesting to any fact about Jesus, including his name or a single sermon or anybody giving him a citation for stealing donkeys or soliciting alms in the wrong part of town. None of that exists. And so to whatever extent historians will say Jesus existed, all they're really saying is this character is presented as if they were a real person doing extraordinary things. We're attesting to the fact that generations of people, including people from nearly around the time that he existed, were convinced he was real. That's good enough for historians, because historians aren't confirming magic.
Yeah. And I guess I would add on to that, like, it seems to me that even people who are hardcore theologians, like, so general historians is one category, but like looking at people who are like, I am a serious believer and I have looked at this very honestly, like people who are very serious about their beliefs and have looked into it honestly come up with different conclusions about his historicity and like about the authenticity of like, oh, does he really exist? And like, so this is one of those areas where for me, because there is a lack of consistency from the people who care a lot and who really believe in this, like it kind of frees me up to go like, I don't care about whether he was a real person at the end of the day. Like, I don't think that it's of much note whether that person actually walked around and did stuff. But like, yeah, there's stories about him all over the place. Like, he is considered a prophet of Islam, in a particular way. He's not like the Messiah in Islam, but like, okay, so obviously the stories have traveled quite a bit. But yeah, I don't know where you would necessarily like find the best information about it. If that's like the main question you're driving toward, is like, I think that there was a documentary type thing that I watched like 12 years ago that was some historians and theologians talking about the subject and like talking about their reasons why they believed or didn't believe in the historicity of Jesus. And yeah, I just think that it would be hard to come down conclusively one way or the other. And that if somebody is coming down hard conclusively one way or the other, I would probably want to more closely examine their biases. Because if you look at the information that we have, we would need to say probably, but I don't know. So if you have someone who's going with an even stronger assertion of like, yes, for sure, it did happen this way, like I would just be skeptical of the confidence of that claim.
Okay. Yeah. that all certainly makes sense. Yeah, I feel like I definitely have a better understanding now of how historians operate on validating historical stuff like that. Thank you.
It only
I
matters.
did.
It only matters because the core of Christianity is tied to his existence, his life, death, and resurrection. And this is my favorite thing. I have, like I said, I have friends that are mythicists. I think some of the things that mythicists claim are not only batshit crazy conspiracy level theory of wrong, but some of them are grossly overreaching in what they can demonstrate. They find similarities with other religions and they're like, oh, this is a copy of that. Well, it could be, it might not be. It just depends. But here's the thing. For Christianity to be true, Jesus must have died and resurrected, which means he must have existed. How sad is it that the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the universe not only sets up a broken system where he has to impregnate someone with himself in order to be born, sacrificing his eternal beingness to live existence as a physical being so that he can die to serve as a loophole for rules he's in charge of. This would then be the most important thing about Christianity. And Christians have no hope of ever demonstrating that he actually existed. They just have to run on the historian's assumption, and they have no hope that to prove he resurrected, no hope to prove that he died in the process, no hope to prove that he was eternal or divine, or that any of this actually happened. And so it's what I call compound inference. They infer that he existed because they're relying on historical methods that aren't designed to test the thing that they're going to test. And then because he existed, and because people preached about him, they infer that those stories are true. And they infer that this is what happened. And they infer, boom, 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 boom. It just stacks up. And no matter how much you stack up, it doesn't hold. It just washes back out to ground level. Mythicism may be overreaching, but the fact that Christians can't conclusively demonstrate that Jesus lived, died, and was resurrected is the death knell of Christianity right off the bat.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I did have one more question, but I understand if you have theists on the line.
Go ahead and give it a try. But yeah, I do have a theist online I want to get to. What's the question? Maybe we can hit it quickly.
This is completely off track from the whole Jesus historicity thing, but I wanted to ask what your thoughts on were who like the more progressive Christians when you point out the homophobic verse in Leviticus about a man lying with another man. I actually heard someone bring up this argument on one of your older shows, and they said, oh, well, that's just a mistranslation. That was shown to be a mistranslation. That verse is wrong, and it was supposed to be something else.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And even if it is a mistranslation, it's up to God to sort it out. Why would God be okay with homosexuality and allow a book to denounce it and vilify them for the entire history of humanity? This is what's called a post hoc or ad hoc rationalization. Christians are now uncomfortable with the fact that for millennia, they've advocated for positions that their book clearly states. You know, I had a former friend of mine was a comedian who used to joke that particular passage of if a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman isn't at all about homosexuality being wrong. It's about sexual positioning. You have to raise the butt up just a little bit higher. And I was like, wow. But let me tell you, theists and Bible folks aren't too far from making ridiculous claims like that, because the world around them has changed. And now they're stuck defending a book that is clearly immoral on its face. And it's difficult to do that and then claim it's the inerrant word of God. I appreciate the call, Chris, but I got to move on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers. So we have a theist. David, a theist, pronouns of they, them, says, why do we have to prove something exists if you don't believe it? Well, David, if we believed it, we definitely wouldn't need you to prove it. You only need to prove something to people who don't believe it, right?
And glad to be back on this show. I was here a month ago and I was chatting with you. I don't know if you remember that conversation, but
I
didn't
don't.
go
I just asked a question.
too great. You hung up on me.
Yeah, I just asked you a question. Did you hear the question?
So, proving.
Hang on, David. I'm going to mute you because, first of all, I can hear myself in the background. So the show that you're watching on whatever device you're watching it on, turn it off, mute it, whatever it is. We don't need an echo back for ourselves. You said, why do we have to prove something exists if you don't believe it? Everything that I believe now is something that I have become convinced of because somebody, in a colloquial sense, proved it. If I already believe something, I have no expectation for somebody to prove it because I'm already convinced of it. So my question was, don't you only have to prove something to people who don't believe it?
I don't agree with that statement. I mean, but do I have to prove that a flying spaghetti monster in Jupiter?
David, maybe you didn't understand. There are two people here, okay? Person A does not believe there is a God, and person B does believe there is a God. Okay? Are we clear that those are the two people I'm referencing? One person doesn't believe and one person does believe. Right?
Okay.
Which of those two people would you not have to prove God exists to?
I don't think you need to prove to either of them.
Wow, David.
They both come to their own conclusion.
David, shut up. You are singularly the most frustrating person. It doesn't surprise me that I hung up on you last time. I'm not saying, David, you are required out of the blue to prove anything to anyone. I'm saying person A does not believe that a God exists. Person B already believes there's a God, that there is a God. So person B requires no proof, but person A will require proof if they are to believe. Is that clear?
Okay, that's clear, but I mean, again,
don't say but, don't say but, don't say but, don't say anything else. Now that it's clear that only those people who do not believe would need proof, that is why we are here as people who don't believe, asking people to call in and prove it. You are not required to call in, David. You may never be required to call in ever again. You are not personally required to prove anything to anyone. We are here requesting that people who believe and think they have good reason provide that good reason to us so that we might also believe. Is that clear?
That is clear, but it's clear that you've made up your mind.
David, don't say but. I'm not done. You are going to come the closest to busting my zen of anybody here. So I'm sitting here with Lux. We don't have a belief in God. We are asking people who do and who think they can demonstrate it to call in. Here's my next question. It's a yes or no question. Are you someone who believes and wants to demonstrate why we should believe? Yes or no?
Why we should believe what? In God?
Never mind, David. I don't care to continue a conversation with you if you can't follow this for 1 fucking second.
I mean, you're just baiting me into like a...
No, sir, I'm not baiting you, David. You are either a troll or especially stupid. I'm explaining that we are here unconvinced of something that many people are convinced of. We are asking those who want to call in and convince us to do so. We didn't ask people who don't want to call in and convince us to do so. So the question I asked you is, are you a believer in a God or anything? We'll stick with God. Are you a person who believes in God, who is calling in now to convince us of your God? Yes or no?
Yes.
Cool. Then please present the reasons that Lux and I should believe in your God. You can start by saying, my God is, and then describe your God.
Okay, well, a couple points here. So first point is, what would you count as proof?
Okay, David, no. First thing is, you say, my God is, and then you tell me about your God. Even if, I know what you were getting ready to ask. You're getting ready to ask, what would you consider evidence or proof? That's a question I've answered about 50,000 times and just released another video on my channel about it. For most God claims, I have no idea what evidence would convince me, because I don't know how to tell the difference between something I don't understand and God. I don't understand how to tell the difference between God and some advanced technology. But none of that is relevant. It does not matter what Lux would consider evidence, and it does not matter what I would consider evidence. What we're asking for is for you to tell us what you consider evidence. What evidence convinced you and that you think should also convince us? Because if what convinced you is something that you don't think should convince us, like God spoke to you and he didn't speak to us, then obviously that's useless. But if you have evidence that you found convincing, that you think should convince us, you can present that, and then you will either convince us or we will be able to explain why your evidence is insufficient to convincing us. I don't need you to ask me what evidence would I accept, and you definitely, absolutely, under no circumstances, should ask a question like that before you've even defined the thing we're talking about. Because if your God is a coffee cup that does nothing, I'm willing to believe it on your say-so. If your God exists outside of space and time, I have no idea what would convince me. I'm wanting you to explain, and this is your opportunity to explain to the thousands of people who are going to watch this why you're convinced. I really don't feel the need to keep trying to explain the absolute basics of what's going on here. So let me be really fucking clear, because this is not going well for you so far, David. Lux and I don't believe in a God. You do. Lux and I would like for people who believe in a God to present their evidence, their reason for believing in God, so that we can either agree with it or disagree with it. I'm going to unmute you. Is it clear now what the purpose of the show
here's
is?
a philosophical argument.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Is it clear now what the purpose of the show is?
Sure, and I'm going to give you a philosophical argument.
Okay, I'm David. You are no longer going to be treated as an adult. Adults who call in and actually can have a conversation, we don't have to do this. I don't have to hit mute 75 times. You, though, need to be led around to answer yes, no questions simply. Because you called in to say, why do we have to prove something exists if you won't believe it, if you don't believe it, if you'll never believe it, if you this? What evidence would you accept? You have no concept at all of what's going on here. And we are trying to genuinely be as helpful as possible. So when I ask a question, answer that question and nothing else. And when it's your turn to give your argument, I will say, please proceed. I don't think that I should have to be explaining the basics of how to have a fucking conversation with anybody. So I'm going to unmute you now. Don't say a word. I'm going to unmute you. Do not say a word. David, are you ready to present which God you believe in, followed by the reason you think we should believe in that God? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
I'll take the sir, even though I was not an officer. I was enlisted, and sir annoys the shit out of me. And it also demonstrates how problematic you are. But please, tell us which God you believe in.
Okay. I mean, these have all been ad hominems. You've been just attacked.
Okay. Yes, David. An ad hominem is when I say you're stupid, when I say you're obstinate. An ad
Oh,
hominem,
you're
by the way,
wrong
isn't
because you're
false.
stupid. That's what an
Yeah.
ad hominem is
I'm not-
specifically. It's not just me insulting you because I can insult you and tell you why you're wrong.
Yes. An ad hominem fallacy is when I say nobody should listen to David's case because he's stupid. Simply saying David's stupid is not an ad hominem fallacy. It is an ad hominem attack. And I'm fine with that because I feel that your behavior so far has deserved it. So let's try this one more time. I'm going to unmute you. And I promise you, David, if you'd like to get to your God thing, we would be happy to do it. But I'm not putting up with any more shenanigans from you. So I'm going to unmute you now. Don't say anything. And I'm going to say, David, please tell us which God you believe in first, whatever characteristics or however you'd like to describe it briefly. And then we will ask you for why.
I believe in a ultimate being, an uncaused cause. And the reason I believe this is that everything we observe in the universe.
David. So I said for you to tell us what God you believed in, to describe it. And then we would ask you for your reason why. And I just in the previous mute session where you were being educated, I got done explaining to you that when I ask you a question, answer that question and nothing else. See, there's a slight delay, and we are here as actual experts. Some of us have done this for decades, and we know what you're going to say, but the audience doesn't. And so we're going to ask specific, not all of them, some of them do. Some of them have already predicted all of this before I ever took anything. So we're going to ask specific questions. You just can't say, I believe in an ultimate being that is an uncaused cause, and I believe that because we have follow-up questions on your definition of God. So I don't know what ultimate being means. Can you tell me what ultimate being means?
And like I said, an uncaused cause, and all-knowing, all-powerful, all-encompassing creator.
Okay, that's not what you said. So you said that you believed in an ultimate being that is an uncaused cause. You did not describe what ultimate being is. And it sounds to me like when you say ultimate being, you're referring to the God of classical theism, the Omnimax God, correct?
If you want to put it in that bucket, sure.
I'm pretty sure that you put it in that bucket by saying it was all-knowing, etc. That's what the God of classical theism is. So does your God interact with reality in a detectable way?
It's like a creator is above the natural, right? It's supernatural. That's why I can't go and empirically test whether.
David, I didn't ask you to define creator, and I certainly didn't ask you to define it wrong. What I asked you was, does your God interact with reality in a detectable way? That's a yes or no.
You have to define reality. What is reality?
Okay, David, I have zero interest in playing this bullshit game with you.
That's the same game you're playing. You're playing the same game that I'm doing.
No, it's not. No, it's not the same game I'm playing. Reality is that which we exist in, space-time. It is the cosmos is everything that is or does exist. The universe is our local presentation. We don't know what's beyond the universe, but reality are those things that are true. This phone is part of reality. I'm part of reality. My wallet is part of reality. Things that we do and say are part of reality. All of those things are reality. You and I, let's try this again, David. Do you think that you and I share a reality?
Absolutely, but I would
say
shut your believe that gravity is part of reality?
Making me lose my fucking zen. How dare you ask me to define reality when you think we share a reality? I don't need to define shit.
Yeah.
See, you're dumber than a fucking fence post, David. After a month or so of not losing my fucking zen, you have managed to do it. Congratulations. Because you are the most dishonest caller. I'm jotting down your phone number, and I'm going to ban you from ever calling this show again. Because we've just spent 15 minutes trying to get you to say what you believe and why you think we should believe it. But you called in with some stupid shit about why do we need to prove something if you don't believe it. And then when I ask you, does your God manifest or interact with reality in some detectable way? You can hang up if you want, because you're never going to speak on this episode again. You may on some future episode. I will hang up on you shortly. I just want to make sure you hear this. When I ask you if your God interacts with reality, you would be like, oh, I don't know. You have to define reality. And then when I ask you, do you think we share a reality? And you say yes, it's very clear that you and I have an understanding of reality. So you didn't have to ask me to define reality, which means you are exactly what I said. You are obstinate and annoying as fuck. Thank you for busting my zen. You get a prize. I don't know what the prize is. We should have come up with a prize. Because I genuinely fucking despise you right now, David. I've been doing really good. I've been taking calls from other people who are obstinate, from other people who don't know how to have a basic, civil, decent conversation, from people who, if I say, hey, define your God, and they give me a definition, they're aware of what the God of classical theism is. When I say, does your God interact with reality in a detectable way? They don't try and do the things you did, but you couldn't. And that's great. So thanks, David. A winner is you. Sorry, Lux.
We love the bad faith interaction. No, it's fine. I didn't know that you were going to be like, oh, I talked to this one a month ago and I'm not excited to take that call again. It's like, you know what? I'll just let you do your thing. It sounds good.
Yeah, this is too much. Let's go on to some other callers that have been waiting to hold for a while. John, pronouns in from North Carolina, calling from North Carolina, wondering about progressive atheism. What's going on, John?
Oh, hey, I thought I heard a beep. I don't really want to go after that guy. Okay, so
we need a palate cleanser.
I have a number of friends that are what I would call progressive Christians. Very humanist, not very dogmatic religious.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
John, I'm confused because you're talking about progressive Christians, and this topic says you were wondering about progressive atheism.
So it was kind of an equation to the progressive Christian label, and how we can work together to be more humanist.
Okay, I'm confused. Go ahead and lay out whatever you're asking, however you need to, because I just don't understand this.
My understanding basically is like, how can we as atheists accomplish things when we know a bunch of Christians, and it's like we want to work toward progressive causes together, but like, how do we do that while reconciling our difference in beliefs? Is that kind of what you're heading toward, John?
Humanist causes, yes. But I
humanism is anathema to Christianity in virtually every sense. But I'm happy to work alongside anybody that advocates for humanism, even if they're also confused enough to say they're Christian.
Okay, so maybe I can change the topic slightly to ask how we can just bring those people closer to, like, or more relate to those people, those types of people, I guess, because I feel like I have a tendency to alienate those types of people because of my my atheism, because I'm a little bit still in the angry atheist phase, I guess. So people say stuff about their beliefs, and I kind of,
I'm happy to jump on this because we did actually talk about this on TACIS a few weeks ago, or like a month ago or something, is like how, and specifically I'm coming at this from a context of like, I'm trans, and like, how do I deal with being a trans atheist in like broader trans and queer communities, which like, because this country is majority Christian, those spaces also tend to have a lot of Christians in them. And like, I've had a problem before where I got into an argument with a trans person over the whole like churches should not be automatically non-taxed entities. Like, you know, why is it that they don't have to prove that they're doing community good? And like, so I've experienced situations where by being an anti-theist, which I kind of think that's sort of what we mean when we say like our angry atheist phase, it's like where we're still actively opposed to it, rather than like sometimes people end up in this space where they're like, I just kind of don't care anymore about what Christians believe. I am still very much, if I go in that part of me, I'm like, no, it's still very much angry. I am not cool with the fact that we do society like this. So like, how can we overcome that feeling and work with Christians or even be friends with Christians? Or like, I can't fucking imagine being a partner to a Christian. Like there is just like a certain, I don't think I could deal with it. So yeah, how do we deal with that? And like the unfortunate thing that I have kind of landed on is like, I have to set my anti-theism aside if I'm going to work in coalition with people toward other causes. You know, like I haven't done atheist specific conversations in a really long time. Occasionally I'll talk about it on my own channel, but I haven't been as mired in this as an activism thing because there's these other issues that are kind of more important to me materially. Like, yes, atheism, like we are oppressed in certain ways. We're less likely to be supported for holding office. People say that they trust us less than rapists. Like there are, you know, losing family members, having relationships suffer, like losing a job. All of those things happen to atheists and it's oppression and it's bad. I am transgender and queer and disabled and I have other fucking problems. So I just have basically come down on like the unfortunate answer is I have to cool my jets and basically keep that shit to myself if I'm going to work in coalition with Christians, because there basically is no way of challenging a Christian's belief in Christianity, even though, as Matt says, like it basically exists in opposition to humanist ideals. Like if people are going to actually follow Christian beliefs, and not cherry pick and go like, well, I like gay people, you know, it just seems like you have to be willing to hold your tongue sometimes and get over yourself a little bit and go, yeah, I don't really like that. But I want to be clear that it's not just about being an atheist too. If I'm going to go volunteer at a homeless shelter, I have to be prepared for the fact that I'm probably going to hear somebody use a racial slur. And I just have to continue to be there in the community with that person. And you have to be around people who are going to misgender you or who are going to say anti-queer things. That's just part of living in society. And you have to pick your battles and you have to decide what's more important. So if volunteering for homeless people is important to you, guess what? You're probably going to have to work with a church. Like a lot of those services are privatized.
Let me ask this, because this might address John's thing from a different perspective, and Lux is in a unique spot to answer this. I'm happy to work alongside believers who support church-state separation and LGBTQ rights. But there are also limits. So, for example, if you say, I support trans rights, but I don't think trans women should be involved in sports, in women's sports, then A, your first statement that you support trans rights is false. You're cherry picking trans rights. The question is, from a strategic standpoint, Lux, if you knew, like, let's say I'm that guy. Let's say I'm Michael Shermer, who's the next jackass transphobe piece of crap that I'll call out today, along with all the rest of them. Shermer, fine with trans rights, just doesn't think trans women should be playing women's sports. Would you be willing to work alongside Shermer for the other trans rights?
I mean, that is kind of the ultimate question about the Democratic Party, isn't it? Like, am I going to get on board with the Democratic Party, even though they have, as a group, decided that they're not going to support trans rights in that way? I mean, having the opportunity to persuade people is valuable. So I can see situations where it might be worth it to try to explain something to someone and be like, look, you're giving them an inch, they'll take a mile. It's kind of like we can't say, oh, of course we're going to make abortion illegal at a certain point. You know, it only makes sense for it to be illegal at the 9th month or whatever. And the fact that people do that, that's a dead baby at that point. Like the baby is not going to make it if it gets terminated at that point in the pregnancy. But like you open the door to then taking more rights. So I'm interested in persuading people. Am I gonna like hang out with that person is kind of a different question, I guess. So like I can have a working professional relationship with someone without inviting them over to dinner.
It's a really thanks. That's kind of the point is.
Yeah.
There are people that I'm going to work alongside where we agree on the one thing that we're focused on in the short term, but we are not friends. I don't consider them an ally in the broad sense. Lux brought up the Democratic Party. I'm fucking pissed at the Democratic Party. I'm not a fan of it at all. But when it gets down to, we know when all the data shows it's either going to be this candidate or this candidate. You vote for the best candidate, no matter what party they're in, or if they're in no party. I mean, because the only other option is to say, hey, I'm not going to participate, in which case you're saying, I'm fine with the worst option. I'm not doing anything to stop the worst option. That's a different scenario than saying, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to do a march. We're going to do a march for queer rights during Pride Month or whenever. And the person standing next to you at that Pride rally supports LGBTQ stuff mostly, but has some things that they really object to or concerns about. I say, let them march alongside of you, even if they're only doing it for a photo op so they can look cool on their friends and look like they're not a bigot to their friends, and use that opportunity to maybe engage with them and figure out how to perhaps convince them on the other thing. Because also it may be possible that they're right about the other thing, and all of us who are, we could be wrong. You just show me if there's a God, if there's some problem with, I don't know, trans women using the women's bathroom or whatever. Lux doesn't get to pee anywhere. Sorry.
True. No, it's true. I literally moved 2,000 miles across the country because of this.
And so I think, John, to get to what I think you're asking, I'm in complete agreement with Lux. I cannot imagine me in a relationship with any theist. I can't imagine me in a relationship with anyone who believes in pseudoscience and woo and all that stuff, because a relationship demands respect. And if I can't respect their positions, and if I think this is an issue of truth, like Arden watches some shit on TV that I would never watch, and I watch shit that Arden would never watch. We have a lot of things in common. We are like a unified mind on a number of things, but there are areas where we just don't see eye to eye. But that's about like opinion stuff, personal preference. It's not about what rights someone should have. It's not about whether or not homeopathy actually works. It doesn't. We've tested it. It doesn't. I would have a hard time respecting those people on a personal level, but I would still work with them when possible to try to change the things that we agree on and want to change. And this is what needs to happen with the progressive left, with humanists across the board. If there's some Christian out there who I happen to think is a delusional buffoon because they say, I'm a Christian and a humanist, and I advocate for this and this, and I just ignore all the other shit in the Bible. I just think Jesus is in my heart and wants me to love everybody. Okay, I'll work with them on that issue, but I'm not going to platform them on this show as a representative of that issue because they're not there yet, if that makes sense.
That's what it is. So basically just I need to ignore that aspect of those people.
If you're trying to accomplish something that isn't religious, then yeah, for sure.
If they agree with me on every single other issue, I just need to let that part go.
If you find somebody that agrees with you on every issue, let me know, because I have yet to find that anywhere. But if you agree on the important stuff, and you can figure out the things that are not that big a deal.
it's not like don't defend your beliefs. If they ask you your beliefs, you know, you can say like, yeah, this is what I believe, or you can say, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I'm not saying don't defend what you believe or don't ever question what they believe. Like, if somebody is talking to you and they say, I think that this happens after you die, what do you think? Like, sure, be honest. You know, I'm not saying like pretend to be a Christian or anything, but that, yeah, like I would say don't initiate those conversations if you have something else you're trying to accomplish.
And just be respectful.
Yeah, totally.
I got it.
Sweet. I appreciate the call,
thing.
John. Thanks so much for giving us something to talk about that isn't what is reality.
But really, what is reality? I mean, is it like
goodbye, John?
Day, homie.
Yes,
is reality, man.
Thanks, man. No, you're done. Boom. It's so wild because when you're trying to, you know, I've done this for ages. When you're trying to have these sorts of conversations about religion and things like that, everybody's coming with a different level of understanding and vocabulary. But if we have to spend time on the phones answering questions like what is reality, and we're not, I mean, I have no problem at all with, let's have a philosophical discussion about truth. It is truth that which comports with reality, and how would you tell? And can you get to capital T? Those are fun conversations. I would even bong rip and have those conversations. They're not what this show is. And if you're not at the point where you can answer a question like, does your God interact with reality in a detectable way with either yes, no, or I'm not sure, you're not ready for these conversations. If your answer is, well, it depends. What's reality? Yeah. All right. Final call for the day.
Cus I Wanna. That sounds like fun.
See? We have a whole show sometimes Cus I Wannas. And yeah, we'll bong rip that later. So as a reminder, we're getting ready to take the final call of the night. And then after it's over, we will be reading your super chats. All super chats over $10 will be read. If you have questions for me, if you have questions for Lux. And as a reminder, Lux is going to be on Transatlantic Collins show tomorrow with Dr. Ben. And it's so cool to say Dr. Ben now instead of student Dr. Ben. But I feel like I lost something. I feel like it got lessened. Like student Dr. Ben to just Dr. Ben. It's a bigger deal, but I don't know. I like maybe
we need to add his title somehow. Yeah, we got to string more. It's got to be like Daenerys, first of her name, Stormborn, all that.
Maybe it should be Super Dr. Ben.
There we go. You keep the beat to it then. Yeah.
Yep. Somebody also in chat was making a joke about, is that what NB stands for? No bladder. And I was like, no, it's no bathroom.
No bathrooms. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's solid.
All right. Final call from today. Lori is calling. He's been on hold for ages. Lori's a pantheist, pronouns she, her. Wants to know what we think of the first 3 books of the Bible. Are they largely copies? Hey, Lori, how are you?
Well, hey, I'm awesome, and I'm right down the road from you in New Braunfels. And I don't think they're copies. I think, you know how Bart Ehrman always says, copies of copies of copies, you know? I'm thinking that it was a bunch of people that took one thing and then copied the whole thing and then took it to different places. They're really not 3 separate books. I believe that they're one book that has been copied inaccurately or...
You think Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus are one book?
No. I don't even believe in the Bible. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school,
Lori,
Catholic high school, blah, blah.
Lori, I just asked a question. You said you believe they're one book, and so I said you believe Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus are one book?
No, I'm talking about the New Testament. I'm talking about the...
okay. So you just said, it just says here that it just says here that you want to talk about the first 3 books of the Bible. The first 3 books of the Bible are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus.
He wrote it down wrong.
So if you're asking about Matthew, Mark, and Luke,
no. Yeah.
Okay. While we don't have originals, we know enough to know that they were written by different people. There's significant reason to think that there was copying of, hey, I've heard this, that they're telling the same story from different versions, but also there's been a proposed, never mind.
Hey, I got you, but I'm a pantheist now. So I grew up Catholic, and, really, and I decided, Okay, so the last year or two of my life, I decided I'm going to figure out what I believe and not what I was told to believe. And once I started watching, well, your debates are really hysterical because your IQ is so high, compared to the people that you're debating, that it's the other people are kind of comical. But the reality is, Matt, I have to say that I don't think the Bible was written by God. I think that these people back then did a lot of drugs, hallucinogens, whatever.
I don't give
a
shit.
Really do.
I don't care.
And, well, what do you care about then? I'm telling you about my beliefs. That's what you want to know. You want to know whether or not God exists. When I was 4 years old, I was in a car accident with my mother.
I'm done, Lux. You
and
can
I
take
should have died.
entirely.
No, I should have died, but she died, and I lived. And then there have been so many things in my life, but I don't believe that Jesus was one person. There were too many people named Jesus back then. Too many messiahs. There you got Jesus, Barabbas, whatever. People confused them all. They threw them all together, you know? I don't believe that God, said, write this in the Bible. You know what I mean? So I'm not a Bible fan. You know what I mean? I don't think.
I want to give you a chance, Lori, to kind of explain, I guess, what is it that you're driving toward here? Is like, are you trying to say, like, I believe in God because a lot of shit has happened to me? Like, I should have died in this car accident? Like, you're saying, I don't believe in the Christian God necessarily, but you're like a pantheist. You want to express, like, a belief that God is kind of everywhere? God is kind of, like, what even is, like, what does pantheism mean to you?
Well, it's more like, to me, as a highly educated individual, I look at it as an energy thing. Energy can't be created or destroyed if you're looking at physics. And I don't think that God is like this guy with a beard up in the sky with the sun, that walked on Earth. It's more.
I have a question. Why did you land on pantheism and not being a Jedi? If what you believe in is like a force that holds everything together, like a balance between all things and esoteric kind of energy, like, I'm just like, why do we relate that idea to a God in the first place? It's like, that really, it seems like we're straying away from what a God even is.
Yeah, God is more of a universal force. It's more out there, and I can't tell you how many things have happened in my life. Okay, the other day I was walking through my house and I said, geez, I wish I had a safety pin. I looked everywhere. My daughter was here. She looked everywhere. We couldn't find a safety pin. We walked out of the room. We walked back in the kitchen, and I kid you not, there were safety pins on the countertop. Where did they come from? I don't know. So things like that, maybe I attributed that to an energy force around us. Maybe.
I mean, I think that what this comes back to is like a belief that someone is looking out for you, right? Like, I mean, I think that what we're engaging with here is like, this is like the reason why people like Marvel movies. They want to believe that there's somebody out there who's all powerful, who can swoop in and save them at just the right moment, and say it with a cute little line.
This isn't about Marvel movies. This is a real life thing.
Well, I'm trying to get to a point, Lori. What I'm trying to say is that when you are looking at coincidences in your life and you have this feeling like somebody out there is looking out for me, you're engaging in a fantasy, which is a common fantasy and one that I relate to, which is what you really, really hope that there's someone out there secretly looking out for you, the little angel over your shoulder swooping in from the outfield. And like, I
don't believe
understand.
in angels either.
Well, sure, but I was referencing a movie, actually. I was being cheeky, a little funny joke for me about angels in the outfield. It was a movie. Yeah. But I respect that feeling that you have. You're like, hold on, Lori, please give me a second here. I respect where that feeling is coming from of like, I want to believe that something is setting a balance to the universe, that if bad things happen, then good things are going to happen later. Or like, because this bad thing didn't happen, that means someone is looking out for me. Like, I get where that feeling is coming from. I just think that it's a really poor justification for believing in like an energy source of some kind that we can't point toward.
No,
I don't know.
Totally agree. You know, I've got a science background. I'm more in the world of physics.
Bullshit.
You know, it's a different kind of a thing.
How can you
I'm not looking at
reconcile
the world.
knowing physics as an expert in physics and also believing in an energy that can't be measured?
I think that it's a very easy thing to say because we don't have the capabilities to know everything about what has happened or what will happen in the world that we live in today. In fact, if you look out there, you don't even know what's going on in all the other star systems and everything else, which that's not my point anyway. My point is there is an energy force here on Earth, and I'm not looking at it from a religious aspect because I don't think that God designated people to write the Bible.
How can you say that you're not looking at it from a religious aspect? Is like, what I would love to hear you say now is, I'm a physicist and I'm about to design a test so that we can measure the energy of the pantheist God that I believe in, right? Because it's like, I don't really know.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
it would
I'm
be.
not a
I just think that, like,
but I will look into that. I mean, that would be interesting. That would be very interesting.
It would. Yeah. I just think it's good to recognize that what we are engaging with a lot of the time when we're engaging with religious beliefs is we're kind of mollifying an emotional need, like the emotional need to feel like things happen for a reason. And so, like, I think that is kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying about what you believe. And I think that is a kind
getting the right thing because I'm a black and white logical person. I don't have that emotional need. I don't have that.
You believe in an esoteric energy that you can't measure and means that your mom died, but you didn't. Like, you think that is logical?
Well, no, that was just the beginning. I mean, you asked your viewers, your people, to tell you reasons why you think their God exists. So that's what I'm explaining to you. My God is just an energy force that's all around me. And I believe in that.
Specifically said for bullshit like this to not call, by the way.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said I specifically said for bullshit like this to not bother calling, by the way.
Why is this bullshit? You asked for my interpretation of what God is to me.
No, I fucking didn't. I never did. I specifically said the opposite. I do not give a fuck about bong rip theology bullshit at all. I don't believe anything you say. I don't believe that you're an expert in physics in any sense. You called in to ask us. I stopped talking. Stop talking. You literally did. You called in to ask a specific question. And while I was giving you the answer to that specific question, you decided that it would be the best thing to do to just interrupt me and talk over me. Then you did the same thing to Lux, stop talking. Then you did the same thing to Lux. And then while I'm sitting there listening to Lux patiently try to explain shit to you, you then went on to ask Lux or ask people if Matt was making faces. It's very clear I'm your senpai and you need my approval and you're not getting it. So I'm done.
Well, that's not true. Okay. Matt, you're having a bad day. Sounds like you had a couple of whiskeys.
I'm not having a bad day.
Couple of tequilas right now myself.
You are an absolute train wreck of irrationality and rudeness.
Okay, bye. Have a good night.
Bye. Okay. I tried.
The parasociality is crazy. Like, people are just like, I am calling. Listen, Matt, you could be making so much money with like a humiliation kink. I swear to God, people just want to call and have you tear them apart. That's all they're here for. They get gratification from it. It's so weird.
I'm a logical black and white thinker, and my specialty is in physics. Oh, I never said I had any expertise in physics.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I messaged Arden. I was like, look, I'll tell you what I said. Most of what I said. I said, after Lux is done with Lori, we can go to Supers. I have zero interest in ever speaking to Lori. In addition to interrupting the very explanation she called in to ask before I could even get half of it done. She just asked Lux if I'm making faces. She is a confused, ill-informed buffoon who calls herself highly educated while being absolutely irrational on many levels. The fact that she's just down the road from us means I don't want to have any kind of connection with her as well. Everything about this feels wrong. And the problem is none of this had to happen. Hey, you want to know what I think about the first 3 Gospels? I can tell you. Lori called in to hear herself talk and let me know that she's listened to Bart Ehrman and that she's not like those other people and she's advocated for this God and she got this pantheistic view. And noticed me senpai. And congratulations, Lori, I noticed you. And while I didn't yell, I'm definitely going to count Lori as the second person to bust my Zen tonight. Because while there's a delay and people are going to talk over people, you don't call into a fucking show and say, hey, what do you think about the first 3 books of the Bible? And then you actually mean the New Testament. And then before I can even finish 2 sentences on this, you're telling me what you think and what you don't think. Why does none of us give a fuck what you think or what you don't think? And despite what you say, when we asked for people to call in, I specifically said, if you're just going to do this bong rip theology of God is everything, don't bother calling. And that's literally what pantheism is. And so all we were hoping to do was answer your question about the Gospels and then get you to explain maybe why we should consider pantheism. But it didn't matter whether it was me or Lux. I thought it was me, but it didn't matter whether it was me or Lux. You don't know how to have a conversation in the slightest. Don't call back until you do.
People don't get the format. It's like, yes, this is our show. Yes, we are going to interrupt you. We are going to mute you. Sorry. If there's a power dynamic, you're here for it. Sorry.
Can I make an OnlyFans that's only, you message me and I create a custom video just kink shaming, or not kink shaming, but engaging in your shaming kink by telling you how ridiculous you are. I wonder if there's money.
OnlyFans or Cameo or something. You could be monetizing that.
I need extra money, evidently, for security.
Yeah.
All right. Super chats. Thanks, everybody, for your super chats. We're going to start going through these right now. Up first, $10 from Zerth Moonpaw. Thank you so much. Guess who forgot to eat till the show started? This dork right here. Any hoozle? Ready for a great show. Matt and Lux are a winning combo. Thank you. This is the first time, and I would agree. Justice for Espion, Arden is Bestion. True.
Evie, though. Thank you for another $10 from Zerith Moonpaw. Fun fact about the movie Independence Day, when Will Smith yells, "What the hell is that smell?" That was actually him, because no one told him the area they were filming gets really smelly when it's hot. Ooh, fun. I'm going to watch that this weekend. That's fun. I'm going to look out for that.
So Will Smith was smelling himself, wondering what the smell is. That's interesting. $20 from John Kennel. Have a great show. I think we had a pretty good show, all things considered. So thanks, John.
Yeah. $9.99 from Greg Markowski. Thank you. Says, thanks for the show. Do any snakes ever live in social groups? I mean, I don't know that they're exactly social groups, but they do live in colonies, don't they? Sometimes.
So most snakes are more isolated and solitary, but there are exceptions, including garter snakes in particular. There are places you can go in Canada where garter snakes go to mate, and there will be a ball of hundreds, if not thousands of them. Outside of that, though, there's not a lot of social interaction. They don't tend to raise their offspring. There are going to be exceptions to all of this. And because snakes are reptiles, we have other reptiles that are incredibly social. Our zebra skinks, you leave their babies in with the parents and they raise them a bit, and the babies eat the poop from the parents, which gives them a stronger gut biome, not butt biome.
Nice.
Gut biome. So yeah, it varies, but generally speaking, as a truism, snakes are a little bit loners. There are exceptions. Don't ever cohab without talking to somebody who knows.
I was going to say, there's actually new research that came out that showed ball pythons do seem to prefer hides where there was another snake in it. But the big problem with that is that's only when you have an enclosure where there are multiple cool and hot spaces for each snake. So you need a massive enclosure where there's 4 hot spots and 4 cool spots for just 2 snakes. It would be ridiculous. So it's not feasible for any captive keeper.
Mm-hmm. There are probably more snakes that could cohab than we're currently aware of, but Arden's dead on right. The limitations on the size of enclosure you have. Hard to tell. $10 from Dave Thomas 94. Just to add, was this one yours or was?
I don't know. I thought it was yours, but you took a long time.
I answered it. Just to add, I had a discussion with a friend on how sad it is we elected great value Schittler. Active resistance against this regime is the patriotism this country needs. Yeah, I really wish people would understand dissent is patriotic. Dissent is what the country was founded on. And I'm so sick of these. I have an entire box of flags downstairs ready to burn just as soon as they make it illegal or try to make it illegal to burn a flag. And I'm an 8.5-year veteran of the United States military, including a foreign war. I dare these motherfuckers to come up and try to tell me that I'm not sufficiently patriotic, because my patriotism is to the Constitution and the ideas that it's supposed to enshrine, and the rule of law, which the Supreme Court are now traitors of, which the entire administration is now a traitor of. That's what I'm a patriot to. Not a flag, not an oath, and not a president. The United States is a beautiful idea that could be prettier, but people keep making it fucking uglier.
Thank you for the 10 Canadian from Quantum Chaos. Says, Lux, I was sad when I saw you weren't streaming earlier, but then I realized that meant that you would be here. And then I was excited, and now I'm still excited. Also, hi, Matt, you're cool too. Yeah, normally I stream on this night, so I was like, I will go do this instead of my own stream. Basically, you and I are in direct conflict every single week because I stream on Sundays and Wednesdays. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. It was fun.
Well, if there was an option to move my show, I'd take it, but there's really not. So we're in conflict. So I would just invite you on more, and then we'll have to split viewers, I guess, the rest of the time.
It's true.
$10 from Quantum Chaos. Religion is like a pen one is. I know. It's okay if you have one. It's okay if it's an important part of your personal identity, but if I catch you trying to force it on my child, we're going to have a problem. Yeah.
True.
It's just another way. There's so many different ways. You know, you're right to swing your fists around ends in my nose, or actually just shy of my nose, since my belly sticks out more than my nose. And so does my pen one is.
Hey, thank you for $10 again from Dave Thomas. The 10 Commandments in schools does nothing. It certainly doesn't help prevent school shootings. Yeah, I mean, really all it does is make people feel weird and bad. Like, I don't know what else you're accomplishing aside from just, I mean, you're also kind of subtly scaring everybody who's not a Christian when like the government takes an official position like that. If you holding a sign at a protest is a form of speech, then surely the signs hanging in a government building constitute a form of speech. And therefore the government is telling you, thou shalt have no other God before the Christian God. And that is kind of a terrifying threat looming over your head all the time. Not good.
I think the question we should have asked is, I tried to give examples of other potential religious tenets to put up, but what if they weren't actually a part of any religion? What if it was just a truism? What if we listed the founding principles of the KKK? What if we had a sign there that says, hey, you don't have to believe it, but white people are better than brown people? Hey, we're not saying anybody has to believe it. How would a kid feel going into school every day, no matter what their racial identity or heritage, just knowing that they were sitting in a building where that sort of, I can't come up with the right word, mass, I can't come up with the right word. All right, you guys know what I mean, but yeah. It just further marginalizes people. It's completely unnecessary. And if you're not going to say that you're going to enforce it, then what's the fucking point? Like, hey, I'm going to put up, go team. Never mind. I've beaten that horse and then dug it up and beat it again. $10 from Ash Glitch. Ah, yes. All those elementary school students committing adultery. True.
Totally. I wish that I had a chance to go in on that more of like, this is like, okay, if y'all are going to bitch so much about us talking about trans and gay people in schools, because shouldn't the parents have an opportunity to tell their kids about that? It's like, okay, so you're going to put a sign in a room full of 5 and 6 year olds. By 6, they're reading. Okay. For sure. By 6, they can read. So you're going to put a sign in there that says, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. Now I have to explain to my kid what coveting is. I have to explain why it says that. Like, I have to explain sex to them. Or it says don't murder. Like, oh, okay, now I have to explain death to my 6-year-old. It's like, they do have a goldfish, but it's supposed to last another couple of years. I was going to wait to explain that until later. But yeah, no, now we're going to force parents to have to confront these issues and like these kids in an environment where they don't have the appropriate emotional support. Like, yeah, how is that appropriate for kids? Don't fuck your neighbor's wife in their classroom.
Don't do it anywhere, but definitely don't do it in their classroom.
No.
Hey, Arden, didn't your parents replace a gerbil or a hamster and hope you didn't notice?
Yeah, I had a hamster growing up that died after like maybe a year. And without telling me, my dad went to the pet store and got the most similar looking one he could find. And so I thought I had the longest lived hamster of all time as a child.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, it's so weird. Randomly, my hamster went from being an asshole to being like a really nice hamster who sits on my shoulder. That, I guess it was just, I waited it out long enough. Nope, I was lied to.
You're called Guinness.
So shit.
My hamster's been alive for 37 years. That'd be good. Hey, you got an easy one.
Yeah, thank you for the $10 from Damien Youth. No comment. Appreciate that.
By the way, that is an artistic pick right there for Damien.
Yeah.
I must say,
Very
you got a
moody.
good profile pick. $10 from Damien Thomas, who has a better profile pick because that is looks like a bamboo ball python. For the first commandment, I don't recognize any kings or God, nor would I worship them. I'm right there with you. I don't know that I put that first, but
10 units from the Fuzzy Logic. Thank you. Says new commandment. Thou shalt not play thy sound out loud whilst thou travel aboard a public conveyance, for that is an abomination. Also, don't own people. I want to add on to that. Also on hiking trails, and the beach. Literally anywhere in public. Just keep your shit, your phone calls and your music. Put it up here. I'm sorry that your phone company decided to get rid of the auxiliary port so that you had no choice but to buy AirPods, but fucking buy the AirPods or wait to take that phone call.
Hey, Arden, you want to tell them about the dude at NARBC that we see every year?
Oh, no.
Oh, the guy who walks around like, is it Daft Punk that I'm thinking of?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't know their gender. They're kind of ambiguous, TBH, but this person who just kind of walks around with that dress like Daft Punk, like a techno helmet, all this like cyberpunk kind of gear, and a speaker on their hips that just plays like techno music. And they don't ever linger in anywhere, so it's not like really annoying, but it's always loud, and they walk through the entire thing just over and over and over again. So it's like this weird like, oh hold on everybody, we got to be quiet because the techno person's walking through. Like, very bizarre.
And I'm pretty sure they're recording. I'm pretty sure that among all the tech, they are also recording like 360 shots. And so I think it's partially to see how people react to something, because I can't imagine what functional use there could be other than just being performative, but
make that money, I guess.
$10 from Cat's Meow. Another new commandment. Thou shalt count to 3. Thou shalt not count 2, except by way of counting to 3. 4, thou shalt not count. 5 is right out. Makes as much sense as holy text. It makes more sense, I think. What, behind the rabbit?
Thank you for the 20 Australian from Puggles. No comment. God bless America. Thank you.
$10 from Infinite Saxon. Matt, how do you think liberal Christians sincerely balance their faith's core teachings with lifestyles that don't always align without conflicted or inauthentic? I don't think they do. I think one of the key aspects of Christianity is to create a guilt cycle of you can't live up to what God wants. That makes you feel bad, which gets you saved, and then you rededicate your life and you keep failing and failing and failing. when I was a Christian, I was in a constant state of feeling conflicted or inauthentic. I had, all kinds of problems, and it wasn't anything at all. I sincerely believed. And it's like, I don't know how to deal with all this confusion. And then you talk to the ministers and they're like, well, you just got to trust God. And you may not get your answers in this life. You may not get your answers until the next life. And so they just keep pushing off any sort of resolution. I fully suspect that I have a number of psychological issues that I'm learning more and more about. I have a real problem with a lack of closure. It shows up in calls, it shows up in conversation, it shows up in arguments or when, whatever. I have a real problem with a lack of closure. And I think part of that was because of indoctrination into a particular version of Christianity where my anxiety was constant, but I want to know this, you got to wait. But I want to know this, you got to wait. Well, you might have to wait till you're dead. You might, and then even then God may not tell you. And I think that was drilled into me so much that it made me sort of manic and anxious anytime there's a lack of closure. Whether or not that's the actual cause, I don't know yet.
That's a fun thing to have to start digging into. It's like, I don't know why I'm the way that I am. Let's figure that out and maybe try to be more adaptive and not maladaptive.
Yep.
20 Canadian from Your History. Thank you. It says, Matt and Luxander, great show tonight. Matt, when people strip your Zen and trot upon it, overtop their sodden soil, we are there to pick up the pieces of Zen once again. Thanks for all you do, 20 plus years.
Well, I'm amazed that I made it as long as I did without genuinely losing it. And I didn't lose it as much as I have at other times in the past, for sure. I will continue to be working on this, but holy crap. When you have to explain something to someone like they're 5 and hand walk them just to get them to answer a simple question, it almost doesn't feel worth it. It doesn't feel honest. It's like, you didn't have to call. You could listen and learn something from the other people who called so that you have a better way to engage. But, Dave's not here. $10 from Infinite Saxon. Hey, Matt, I just want to thank you. Your show and your perspective on secular humanism, really helped pull me out of some deeply radical views. You gave me the clarity to rethink it. Oh, that's so kind. I'm glad it was useful. I am just echoing sentiments I learned from other people.
Thank you for the 10 units from Brian, not Byron, says, I've watched The Line for a long time. Matt helped me break free of indoctrination as a teen, despite being in a Catholic academy run by the church. Great show. I hope you both have a great night. Yeah,
Thanks.
I cite you all the time, Matt. I talk about it on my channel and on TACIS, and it's like everybody needs something different during all parts of their process of deconstruction, whatever that is that they're deconstructing. Sometimes you need Matt Dillahunty to tell you you're being a fucking idiot. And sometimes you need someone to very calmly walk you through every step and say, I'm so sorry. I understand why you feel that way. Poor baby. I get it. And there's a contrast between those things. And you can't say one way works and one way doesn't, because they all work together to get people going the right direction.
Amen. I am in agreement. Yeah. All I'm trying to do lately is broaden the potential ways in which I can have the conversations. But you know what? I'm 56. I've done this for 20 fucking years. And if you ask me, well, what is reality? We're done. I feel
like that's a fair boundary. I feel like if there's going to be a boundary, it's like when you reveal your ass is you're so bad faith right now. I think that's fair.
$10 from Maud. Thank you very much, Maud. And then there's Maud. What is the point of making reasonable arguments based on logic, facts, figures, science, and current events when the majority of the population is motivated by emotions, tone of voice, and vibes? That is the question that I struggle with every day. The things that I think should change minds definitely should, but other things are changing them also. And those other things are getting them more entrenched. People are buying into conspiracy theories at a record pace, seemingly, and anti-science stuff at a record pace. The thing is, if they're being deceived by lies, I don't think there's anything that we can do there's nothing that I'm willing to advocate other than fighting lies with truth and showing why they're lies and teaching people how they were deceived into believing lies. I cannot advocate lying in order to give them a new lie to buy. I just can't.
Yeah. Arden and I have been talking about this for a few weeks. Like, there's a post that I saw recently that was like, I have a mental illness where I think that if I explain things to people with facts and logic, it will change their mind. And it's like, yeah, you have to really come to terms with the fact that that doesn't help. Well, but I will, it's building on what I just said. I do think everybody needs something different at all points in their process. So maybe they're not convinced right this second that trans women should be in sports or whatever issue I'm talking about. Like, even though I think the facts very strongly support my position that we should abolish gendered sports. Like, people might think later on what I said. Maybe they meet someone and they have the emotional connection of like, oh, my friend's daughter got kicked off of her team. Oh, I didn't realize this was going to affect 10-year-old girls. That's not fair. And then they think back to what I said and they go, oh, wait, shit, maybe there is like an argument to be made, whatever. So yeah, I do think it's unfortunate that people are, they have emotionally motivated reasoning is a weird kind of, feels like it's juxtaposed, but that is kind of what they are doing. And you have to try to reach them with facts and emotional persuasion. And I'm really, really bad at the latter. So I'll let Josie Caballero do that. She's good at that. I'll just let her do it.
And the thing is, I think one of the things is that people get frustrated when, and I do too, when what you think should work doesn't. Like, I presented a logical argument. I showed you where your fallacy was. I showed you that the thing that you claimed was true wasn't true, or I at least pointed you in the direction of it. Why isn't this working? There is an instinct to say, oh, these people are immune to logic and facts and figures. And the truth is, they're not. Everybody relies on the same foundational logic all the time. It's just that they don't know they're doing it. And so that means they don't know when they're violating it. Because when you're wrong and you don't know it, it feels exactly like it does when you're right. And if you reach a conclusion that is useful through bad reasoning, you're more likely to use that same flawed reasoning again for something else, and then assume that it's as likely to be right as the other thing. The foundations of skepticism and critical thinking, learning fallacies, both formal fallacies and then how things are manipulated by being bad at statistics and buying into propaganda, or thinking there's a they out there that isn't a non-binary person, but is a they that doesn't want you to know something. And, that takes work, and it requires us changing how we educate people. And right now in the United States, because of Trump and Project 2025 and putting Linda McMahon in charge of education, we are fucked. There is zero chance that good, skeptical, critical thinking, logic instruction is actually going to take place in public schools, maybe for another 10 or 15 years. And that's if we fight really hard, focusing on education. I hate coming in and being the doom and gloom host, but I'm here dealing with reality. And that's what's really happening right now.
Being a skeptic and reckoning with reality makes you look like a huge pessimist. And it's like, sorry, the world just actually is that bad. Thank you for the 10 units from Jessica. Oh, we got the Espion. What's up, Espion?
This evil person. I have to censor her evil messages with goodness.
Oh, no. Jessica Doodoo McButtface. I'm here for a Matt humiliation kink. I love watching him humiliate dumb people. Where's the OnlyFans link? Hashtag activate Zen mode. Hashtag Espion is dead. Hashtag love you soon. Why is everybody talking about Espion? Sylveon is obviously the trans one.
Okay, I can answer this. Honey, relax. Jessica found out that Espion is Arden's favorite Pokemon.
Gotcha.
Jessica decided to go with Growlithe and keep poking Arden. It's become a terrible feud where Jessica has now been renamed Doodoo McButtface.
Got it.
Jessica just will not stop. And it's genuinely hurting Arden. Like, she cried herself to sleep 2 or 3 nights in the last week. Just, Growlithe is really not good. And it was
tragic.
Yes. $10 from Zerth Moonpaw. Thank you again. Hey, Lux, you a furry? If not, what would your fursona be?
I think technically I am a scaly. You might notice there's one dragon, there's 2 dragons, there's a Rorschach of a dragon, there's a dragon over here on top of my PC, there's a dragon right there. It's dragon. It's Durg. Yeah.
Is it really a Rorschach of a dragon? Can it be a Rorschach? If you're saying it is a dragon rather than...
I don't know. This is just a rabbit fur that I bought. I just wanted some rabbit furs, so I bought some, and I didn't even notice until way after. I was like, wait, if you look at that, it does kind of look like a splotchy dragon flying. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'll just call it my Rorschach dragon.
Rorschach-esque, whatever.
Yeah. There we go.
$14 Canadian from Maureen. Hey, Maureen, thank you so much. Matt, Zen or no Zen, thank you. Lux and Matt are great too. Oh, that's very, very kind. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Thank you for the $13.99 from Maureen O'Hara. Says, what year does MAGA want the USA to live JN? I don't know what that's supposed to. Is that a typo?
I think it's live in.
Live in. Got it. Yeah. I don't know. 1658.
1493.
True.
Actually, I think most of them think it's the 1950s. Although I think if they went back and looked at, if you forced them to actually live in the 1950s, they'd be like, ooh, hang on.
It's like, oh, do you mean a 90% marginal tax rate? Because yes, please.
Yeah. The good old days are never as good as people remember, but also most of the people pointing to the good old days can't remember them because they weren't fucking alive or an adult then. You know, I was born in 1969. How could the 50s be the good old days? I don't remember what it was like. I just have stories to go on. And what I like right now is computers and technology and knowledge and information and healthcare. I wish we had better, etc.
$20 from One-Eyed Heathen. Lux, of course, I will use it, its pronouns for you as a transgender person. Not all discomfort with it, its pronouns is due to transphobia. For me, people called me it as an insult related to my gender presentation. Well, okay, yes. So, yes, because what you're still doing is like, it is the transphobia has impacted your opinion on this. So my argument on this is like, if I have trauma around she, her pronouns, does that justify me not using a trans woman's pronoun? And I know that you're not saying here that you will not use my pronouns. I understand that. But like, that is like a similar thing, or like, you know, obviously we're sensitive around terms like queer, but queer is also like literally the academic term. You get a degree in queer studies or whatever. So yeah, I just think like this is still coming back to like transphobia and how it affects us being an influence in how we feel about how someone else wants to do their gender expression. So I respect the fact that people have trauma around it. I just also don't think that that is a justification for not using it, its pronouns. Like that on its own is the same thing that I was talking about earlier, where it's like we're taking the same type of argument that is used about binary pronouns, and we're just shifting the goalpost to a different location.
I wonder if there's another thing that's similar. So I know people who use "that's gay" as a way to like slag something off.
It's a pejorative, yeah.
And yeah, I don't know why my brain couldn't think of that word. Thank you. But when I pushed back on them, they're like, "Oh, it's got nothing to do with homosexuality. It means something different." And as somebody who's like, language is our plaything, we get to change what words mean. I think the thing that people got to keep in mind is, if a word's been used in a particular way for a time, it may take quite a lot longer and quite a lot of other side usage before it can shift to where that's now the minority perspective. But for some things, I don't think it's fucking worth it. Because once upon a time, gay meant happy. And then gay became a label for homosexual. Then it became a pejorative because you're basically homophobic and mocking queer folks. And then it became, to some, oh, that just means bad. Yes, but why does it mean bad? That's the point. The why it means bad is entirely about homophobia. And the why it is used in a way to just discriminate and malign people is because it was coming from homophobia, transphobia, that sort of stuff.
Yep. It's all a process of like reclamation of things that have been weaponized against us. And like, why should it be a bad thing? Like, why do we have a different class of like, we're calling non-human things it? Like, you know, there's a vegan argument that I could agree with. It's like that we shouldn't dehumanize animals in that way. And like the simple fact of like, I just watched a Star Trek movie where they were like, see, you just said human rights. That's racist. And I'm like, she's kind of cooking right now. She's not wrong.
Yeah. $10 from Cats Meow. Thank you again, Cats. I vote Velveeta Voldemort over other nicknames for President Dump. Matt and Luxander, great show. Thanks to all of you on the line for being a light in these dark days. Velveeta Voldemort, you know.
I'm against all cutesy usage of J.K. Rowling proprietary things.
Yeah. And I actually think Voldemort was significantly smarter and more devious. I don't think giving the Velveeta Vegemite, I don't know, vegetable, whatever. But yes, I'm with you.
$10 from Dave Thomas. Thank you. Says, thank you for recognizing my baby girl in my PFP mat. Her name is Pepper, and she was my first bamboo. She's my mascot for my snake business when it finally launches. Hell yeah, she's a cutie.
One of the guys that I watched a lot of content from had a bamboo that he would keep around his neck. We didn't have any bamboo in our collection for a long time because, for those who don't know, there's a variety of different morphs. They are genes that change the phenotypical presentation. So it can change the color, it can change the pattern. Bamboo is an incredibly strong morph. It's still just an incomplete dominant trait, which means you can get it from either parent and then it's just present, but it doesn't make for good combinations. Bamboo is so strong it like overpowers a lot of the other combinations. There are some really good combinations with bamboo. And so I have one bamboo, I think it's a boy, in the other room right now. But yeah.
Nice.
Oh boy. $10 from Kayla Martin. Have you looked into Kyle Kulinski? He has done political content. Would you consider having him on the show if he agreed? So once upon a time, I would have said, yeah, I think Kyle and I have spoken years and years ago, and we were definitely on the same page on some stuff. And then something changed. And Kyle became a Joe Rogan fucking simp of epic proportions. And I wanted nothing more to do with Kyle. So I haven't been watching Kyle's content. But what I've heard from people I trust who have been keeping up with his content is that he has gotten off the Joe Rogan bandwagon and has generally been on target for at least the last 6 months or so. And that's cool. I don't know. I don't know. Let me just say, I'm all in favor of second chances. But since there wasn't really a first chance other than peripheral knowing, it would be like, I wouldn't mind having a sit down with Kyle, but I will say this. Kyle's knowledge and expertise in the political realm dwarfs mine. It's not even fucking close. He keeps up with stuff that I don't bother keeping up with. On the religious front, I think one of the reasons that Kyle started doing more political stuff was because he wanted to see some aspects of secular humanism or something akin to it being presented in progressive politics. I can't speak for him. That's just my guess. So the short answer is, I know who Kyle is. I've watched some of his content. I used to like him. Then I couldn't stand him. Now I don't know. I might like him again. I have no objection to possibly having a conversation or doing a show, but I don't know if he has any interest, or I'm not necessarily the best fit for him either. So who knows? What do you think, Lux?
I don't know much about Kyle Kulinski. People mention him every once in a while, and I'm like, there's just too many white men. I can't keep track of all of them. I also don't watch political content in my free time. If I were watching it to react for like a job thing, but I'm also getting away from doing political content for my job. So I just have no reason to familiarize myself with him. Yeah, I don't really care. I guess that's what it comes down to.
I watch Kyle kind of a lot, a couple times a week. I think Kyle is actually great. I think Matt's opinion on him is pretty outdated, and I think he's been pretty anti-Joe Rogan for a long time. He's done a lot of content talking about what a completely far-right captured shithead Joe Rogan is for a long time. I think Kyle's great. I would gladly have him on the line anytime.
That's valuable too. And for someone who used to be a Rogan fan.
Arden. I just didn't want to. So Arden was the first person that was like, "Hey, you need to give Kyle another look," and things have changed and all that. And I didn't want to out Arden as stating what her view is.
As a Kyle Kalinske fan.
So Arden's the reason I'm no longer opposed. Arden's the reason for a lot of things. Oh no, we didn't. Let me go back. I forgot to put it up.
Yeah, $5 from Sentient Tree. Thank you. Wow, a deluxe version of the hang-up. Magic is dead, but fiction is a viable escape from reality. Yes, in small doses. If you do it all the time, it's bad for your brain.
Although, wouldn't a deluxe episode be one where we got rid of Lux?
It's true. That's all the episodes where I'm not on TACIS. Those are the deluxe episodes.
$10 for Sentient Tree. Oops, forgot this show is $10. I have more money. AIG is a bag of eggplants. Fair-ish, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the 20 Canadian from Ayla Ursus. Howdy. Indeed. Thank you.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Final super chat tonight. $50 from WK Misty Nipples. Hey, Misty. Keep your Zen mat. Lux. I love the floopy. That's what I call the tuft of hair that never grows out and never lays down. I have the same thing. Hashtag Zerbalife. Right here. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why Arden, this is doing this today.
What's the story on the Zerbas, Arden?
They're still live. We had so a thing we've been doing with our merch drops lately is having one design that's a little bit fancier. It's the same shirt, but we price it a lot higher. That way, if only a few people buy those, we can afford to get a lower profit margin on like the rest of the merch to make the merch generally a little bit more accessible. So, yeah, all that merch is live. It's actually tagged. It should be popping up in people's YouTube video player right now. So you can go check all those out. Those are still up. And yeah, go support the line and get merch.
Do you have a pop-up of the Zerba thing that people can see? Sorry if you don't.
I don't have one ready to go.
Okay.
It's one that just popped up on the screen. So like if you're on the desktop, at least you should be able to see it there.
So quick notes. First of all, huge thanks to Lux for joining for the first time on the Hang Up. There will be others. And let me tell you all what's going on because I have the schedule up, which is very rare. Tomorrow, it's Ben and Lux on TACIS at 2 p.m. Central. This Sunday on the Sunday Show at 2 p.m., it's me and Austin Archer. On the Sunday Show after dark, it's going to be Forrest and Durante. Erica and Aaron are doing Skeptalk on Monday. Alyssa and Taylor are doing Chewed Gum on Tuesday. And I will be back next week for another Hang Up with Brady Goodwin, who hasn't been on in a hot minute, and I cannot wait. Thank you, everybody, for watching, tuning in, making my Wednesday so much better, donating. Don't forget to go to linemerch.com and patreon.com/call